Alrighty. Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that talks with tomorrow's hoop stars. I am Rich Harrison. Thank you for joining us again. Today I am joined by Josh Tischler, who is in Monaco, I believe. Joey loaned you one of his yachts. Is that how that worked out?
That's how it works. Connection through the show right there.
And Drew is home in California. Enjoying a vacation day?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of sick cosmic joke is being played upon me, but I have to basically single-handedly run a baseball series this weekend. So they'll be lucky to get 50% effort from me. So I basically haven't gone in the last couple of days because I told them, I want to watch the first four, and I figured that'd make me work on basically what is the most important, 4-day stretch of the year for me.
No way.
Yeah, I'm not super thrilled. I'm actually pretty pissed off, but...
Wow.
That. So
do you have something like Hulu where you have unlimited DVR?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be able to stream, and then obviously my dad's gonna record and what he can for me. I'm not super thrilled. Tomorrow I have to briefly go in, but I'll be able to catch the games tomorrow. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday are probably no-goes for me.
Right.
Friday and Sunday I should be able to catch the back end of the games because I'll be able to catch, but Saturday it's a doubleheader. I'll be there all day. I'm actually pretty pissed off. It's a long story, but it's spring break, so we have no student workers. My boss is going with our softball team. I don't really know why. I don't know if he's going just to go or he's going because he needs to go. But I'm pretty pissed off because there's a good chance I'm working baseball games by myself, which means shot clock, PA, music, stats. This guy, or pitch clock. So
right.
The sick cosmic joke, Rich, but...
So, Josh, you have any interesting stories from spring break in Florida?
It's kind of been kind of quiet so far. I mean, what's it called? Yes, what's today? Wednesday, yeah. I mean, Monday was St. Patrick's Day, and that was a pretty hectic day, to say the least. All the beaches and everything were all packed with a bunch of spring breakers, and it's been good so far. Yeah, a bunch of little, running around the beaches, stealing people's phones and stuff. So, but no, it's been good so far. Great weather. Beach has been great. Really nice town.
And what town is this?
Destin. It's about an hour west of Panama City Beach.
Okay, and where's Panama City?
In
relation to Orlando, someplace I would know.
I think it's maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Orlando.
Okay. And on the West Coast?
Yeah, it's on the West West Coast.
Okay, cool. I've never been on the West Coast of Florida. So.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of nice. I mean, it's right on the border of Alabama, actually. And it's okay. I'm actually in a different time zone too, as well, which is pretty cool.
Ah, all right. Yeah. All right. And you look sober.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm disappointed. All right. So we're going to move on to the notebook. Today's show, we're going to focus on picking our collective bracket like we always do. So that takes some time. So we're going to fire through the notebook. I will say that there's a ton of news, ton of guys going into the portal, ton of coaching changes. We're just going to throw some of these out there, and we'll cover a lot of this stuff in more detail. Some we're not even going to mention. We have a lot of stuff listed here, but we're just not going to get to it all. I guess we'll start off with something that I actually mentioned during our Big Ten preview. I saw this coming, and then we talked about it later on in the season after the win at Rutgers that Fran McCaffrey would be fired. So Josh, you're our Big Ten guy. Any comments there?
I think it was the right move for Iowa. I think the last couple of years, it's kind of been disappointing for Hawkeye fans. They had I believe it was 2022. They won the Big Ten tournament. They had a good NBA talent. The Murray brothers. Garza. And I just think it's the way his whole just scheme of basketball is just kind of a little bit outdated in a sense. It's not, they're one of the known for their shooting ability, Sanford, the Murray twins, all those guys can really shoot the ball well, but they were never known for their defensive
They've had a lot of great
abilities.
guards too. That
True.
really
Yeah.
I mean, smaller
Bohannon
guys.
as well.
Yeah, Bohannon. The kid
And
who went to Cincinnati, Frederick.
oh yeah, fair, yeah. And I think it was time. I think he's like it's about 15 years with the program, and he's had some success. But as I think as the school moves on to like a different era, I think it was the right move for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I mean, my point in the preseason was this team has had a lot of talent and really hasn't gone anywhere in the tournament. And I just that's just not good. And Iowa can always score. They could score this year. They were still among the best teams in the country in scoring, but they never can play defense. And then sometimes that offense goes south at the weirdest times too. So Minnesota fired Ben Johnson, which in these situations, if you're not close to it, sometimes it makes you scratch your head. And I know Ben Johnson, like this year, he won. I don't know how many games he won in the Big Ten. Maybe 6, 7.
I
He
think
was
they won like 8.
7 and 13.
7 and 13. Well, that's about 3 times as many wins as I thought he would get with the talent he had on that team. And so is it his fault that they didn't have talent, or is it NIL? And because to me, he got a lot more out of that team than I ever expected.
Well, for what I've heard that the job itself is, I've heard rumors that it's like bottom 2 lowest paying jobs, which also leads me to believe the NIL resources are not great. Like if you're not paying the coach, you're for sure not paying the players. And I believe it was listed as the lowest or second lowest paying job in the Big Ten. I was just reading around. So, I mean, I totally agree. In a weird way, he kind of overachieved.
Yeah.
But in today's world,
Yeah.
though, if you don't have the resources to put a roster together, like there's only so much you can overachieve. And I think that's something that we saw with some other firings. We can get into those later, but some other moves where I think people are putting the cart in front of the horse, thinking that like you're not winning right away. It's like, well, I can't because you're asking me to go toe to toe with multi-million-dollar rosters.
Right. I mean, Minnesota, going all the way back to the 70s, like Michael Thompson, he's the father of who? Clay Thompson.
Klay Thompson.
Clay Thompson, yeah.
Yeah, going all the way back to Michael Thompson days. Minnesota was a highly competitive program. They never were the cream of the crop, but that was always usually Indiana and then maybe Michigan. But they were always in the next tier, but of late you pretty much can pencil them in, to the bottom third of the league, maybe bottom quarter of the league. So let's talk about your school, Josh. They hired Darren DeVries. A lot of people were complaining West Virginia didn't make the tournament. I get that. But maybe it's just as well. He was planning on jumping to Indiana.
Yeah.
So I don't know which came first, but what do you think about the hire?
I love it. I think it's a great hire. I thought he's done an incredible job. Experienced coach. Over at Drake, he was a 2-time MVC Coach of the Year with them. He comes over to West Virginia with a kind of like a depleted squad. Really, it's not a lot of talent coming in. He brings his son over, who's a great player. And even that, he's able to get up. I think it was 19 and 13 overall, and like 6 quad 1 wins and like some good wins. And I think just like from what IU needs, I think they are lacking a coach with kind of a hard determination to win. I think, and I think you didn't really get that with Coach Woodson. I think he was very, very like player friendly with everyone, family.
Fatherly.
Yeah, fatherly. Fatherly is a good word for that. And I think in a program like Indiana, just like how the fans are, just how the program has done in the past 20 years or so, I think they need a change of scenery, and I think Coach DeVries can really do something like that.
Right. Drew, you good hire, bad hire?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that like with it being the Indiana brand, I think people were expecting like a home run, like they were going to go poach another power programs coach, which again, I just think in today's basketball landscape, it's so hard because you just don't know all the like what's happening under the table, the promises being made to these coaches in terms of salaries, NIL resources. So I think given the landscape, I think it's a solid hire. It's one of those ones where I think there's a bit of a dice roll because like we've only seen him 1 year in the Power Five setting, and it was a solid season. And we can get into the back and forth on should they have made it, should they not have made it. I think obviously losing Tucker hurt that team. You can't deny that. I mean they still had 13 losses. I don't think if with Tucker they go and win the Big 12, but I think it's a really solid hire. But it's a time will tell. He's going to get all the resources in the world. And I think the big thing with him is like, how does he manage all that? How does he utilize that? Because it's a different ball game. Like you basically are coming from Drake more or less. And then you go to West Virginia for a year. That's really up and down. And then now you have one of the biggest NIL war chests available to you. How does he spend it? How does he utilize it? So I think it's a time will tell, but I think it's a good hire. And I think at worst, kind of like what Josh said, they got a guy who like, at a minimum, we know can build a program. He built up that Drake team to a powerhouse. He went to West Virginia and was successful, had some great wins, like proved he can coach at that level. He can face down a Mark Few and a Tommy Lloyd and those types of guys. So I think it's a really solid hire. It's just we haven't seen him in a long run over this period of time. How does he recruit, all that. So I don't think you can give anything. Like I'm very comfortable giving like a solid B hiring with the potential to move up into the A for sure.
Yeah. Again, another team that I thought really overachieved. I didn't. I think even with Tucker DeVries, I didn't see that team. I mean, they didn't finish in the upper half of the Big 12, but they still get a lot more good wins than I expected.
Totally.
So I think it's a good hire. And then Lynn, lastly, we've been waiting for this for 3 years. I predicted in our preseason fearless forecast this would happen, though it happened about a month and a half later than I predicted. I said it would happen in the middle of February, but Kyle Neptune was finally fired from Villanova. I've went on and on and on about how this team has underperformed, how the style that they play. I mean, we're talking about near the bottom of the country in terms of pace. We're talking about near the bottom of the country in terms of assist percentage. This offense was like watching paint dry. And he had a lot of guys. I went through the names, the list of names, where they came to Villanova as, potential draft picks or high draft picks, and by the time they left Villanova, they either slipped down the draft board or slipped off the draft board. He did the opposite of what DeVries did, or even what Ben Johnson did at Minnesota. He did not get the most out of his players. And then we had the story where he badmouthed Cam Whitmore, which we don't know if that's true or not. But man, we said at the time that was a fireable offense. I mean, and if he did do that to save his own face, in the long run, he if it turned out to be true, I mean, in the long run, he just basically slit his own throat, because if players think they're going to come there and then get badmouthed, no one's going to come. And we saw that too at Villanova. The recruiting just got worse and worse and worse each year of his tenure. He wasn't building up; he was sliding down. So I don't know if anybody has any comments, but I'm happy. I'm happy he's gone as a Villanova fan. All right, a lot of guys going into the portal. Some of the big names we'll just throw out there quickly. And if you guys have any comments, let me know. Dedon Thomas, UNLV point guard, really good point guard, is in the portal. Owen Freeman, promising sophomore center from Iowa, goes in. Nick Davidson, who we've had on the show, power forward. I believe he's going to be a senior next year. He goes into the portal. Malik Renault is leaving IU, which surprises me. You would think, but I don't know. I see Tyler Cochran's name on here. He didn't play a minute for Minnesota this year. He redshirted. I guess that's why he can go in the portal.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about these guys? And there's more. There's many more that we'll talk about, down the road. But those are the big names that we have right now.
I just like to say with Malik Renew, I mean, I think as now with the coaching situation is all under control in Indiana, I think more Indiana guys will eventually follow him in the portal. I don't suspect him to come back even with Coach DeVries. I think he's from the Miami area, so I could see a lot of Florida schools are linked to him. Miami, the Gators. So I think there's a lot of money in those programs too. I'm sure like Coach Jai Lucas can throw a lot of money, $500K at Malik Renew, and that's something he's looking at. So I would probably say look out for those Florida schools for him, and there's gonna be a lot more players coming to the portal from Indiana.
Okay, I would think that some definitely didn't have the most positive experience, but the coaching change might be something that they might view as a positive.
Sure.
So we'll see. I'm just thinking of guys like Miles Rice.
Yeah, no, I mean it's kind of I read briefly about he's a lot of these players are currently on spring break, so he's going to have one-on-one conversations with them pretty soon, just about like what they want, for their fit specifically. So we'll see as next weeks go on. We'll figure out more about what they need.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up our notebook, and we'll move on to our bracket picks. But before we do, I guess I mentioned it earlier that West Virginia was snubbed. UNC gets in with a 1-12 record in quad one, and I did not know this, but UNC's active duty AD serves as the chairman of the committee. Now, I don't know why this isn't like somebody's job. You would think you would have like, I don't know, 7 to 10 people whose job is to cover like maybe, I don't know, maybe a region of the country or whatever, or a conference or something like that. And just basically that is their job, is to basically kind of like my job, is to watch basketball and to evaluate it. But of course, I evaluate it differently than I'm looking more at players as opposed to teams. But I'm surprised that anyone associated with any university is on the committee. There's so much money involved. Well, thoughts here, guys.
Yeah, it's a really bad look, and it's so funny because like I have some friends who don't watch and are not invested the way we are, and they were like, "Oh, UNC made it! Like, oh, like you look like an idiot. They destroyed San Diego State." And I was like, first off, timeout. I picked them to win the ACC, so if anything, I'm validated. No, it was a horrible pick. That's probably the worst pick I might have made on the show to date. But it's really frustrating because I think two things can be true. They did not have a resume that qualified to get them in. We know they're super talented, and on any given day, they can play with and beat anybody in the country. Anybody. Those two things can be true. I think it's just a really bad look. I mean, something came out, and again, this is just reading and Twitter and all that. Take it with a grain of salt, but like that, Cunningham got a bonus, a $70,000 bonus for with the team qualifying, and they try to sit there and argue that, oh, well, he was out of the room. I'm like, okay, so he was standing outside the door with a wink, wink. I'll see you guys. I mean, come on, like that. What is that? That's just not really great optically. That doesn't do anything for anybody. And then I think you also just look at some of their logic. They were talking about Tucker DeVries' injury, and I'm like, that's not fair. That happened in November, December. They won at Kansas without him. They beat Iowa State without him.
They played most of the season without
him. Like, yes, did they beat Gonzaga and Arizona with him? Sure. They went on and won other big games throughout. I just think that logically, here's my thing, and I'll leave it with this. What really pissed me off about it was last year they looked us in the face and said Indiana State had awesome metrics, but they didn't play anybody. They don't get in. And we all had to sit there and go, are you kidding me? And then they go validate themselves by going to the NIT and making a run on the championship. All those players bounce up to D1s, like bigger programs. So they went and did what they're supposed to do and prove the committee wrong in that sense. But this year, now it's, well, they didn't win any quad one games, but metrically they're a top 30, 35 team. So how can we leave them out? And it's like, well, what are we doing? Like, which one is it? Is it your wins and losses and quad ones? Is it your metrics? Because if it's your metrics, why are Louisville and Gonzaga an 8 seed?
Right.
But then UNC and Texas get in. Like,
Right.
what is it? Like, where, like, in their, they contradicted themselves between this year and last year and in their own bracket creation. Like, if it's
Right.
metrics,
And
why
the
is
problem
Memphis
is,
at 5?
the problem
Why
is
is Louisville
they're
in 8?
self-policing.
Exactly.
They're self-policing.
Louisville just moved
There's
up to top 10 in the last AP poll. If you go look in the history of the AP poll over the last 10 years, I think the lowest seed at top 10, and I know the AP poll is not the Bible, but like if you look at it just for historical, precedent, the lowest at 10, the 10th ranked team in the AP poll, the lowest they've been seeded in the last 10 years is a 4. You gave Louisville an 8. So it's just like, it just looks bad across the board, whether you're a casual fan who just looks at the AP and, shows up and fills out a bracket, or you're really into it like us and you follow these games from, November. I just think it's a really bad look. I totally agree, Rich. Like, they're self-policing themselves. It should not be an active AD in charge of this. That makes no sense to me, especially one of a blue blood program like that. Like, that makes no sense to me. I thought this would be a good selection Sunday because I thought this was the year we get clarification on what do teams matter, because there was so much parity basically through teams 5 through 50 that I thought, hey, this is the year we're going to see. Do they care about the wins, the name brand wins, the metrics? And instead they said metrics matter for this team. They don't matter for this team because wins matter for this team, but not that team. Makes no sense to me. I just want clarity and consistency. Make UNC a 5 seed and we go based solely on metrics. We don't care anything if you win or lose. We just look at your metrics. So since they're the 35th best team, they're a 7 seed. And I can at least go dumb as hell, but it's consistent.
Right. And those metrics are good because they lost to good teams in close fashion. Now,
and the ACC sucks, so they were able to pad the metrics against the bad team.
No, but I'm talking about early in the season,
right,
like against Auburn, and teams like that when they lost, they most of their losses were close. But really, that's how you're going to reward a team for losing close games? I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying. Because if that's
losing is the key word there.
Yeah, if that's the case, then Gonzaga should be like a 2 seed because all their losses were either in overtime or by single digits, and most of them came to teams in the field. And yet, I'm cool with them being an 8. It sucks, but I'm like, that makes sense to me. They didn't win. They lost to UCLA. They lost to UConn. It doesn't matter that they lost those games by a combined 5 points. They lost. It just pisses me off. We have to look at teams like, and it's not just them, like Boise State. There's just other teams in the field, Indiana State from last year. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, I hear you. I agree with you. And yeah, the seating, was kind of weird. I mean, Louisville beat Clemson twice this year. They played them twice, beat them twice. Clemson's a 5, Louisville's an 8.
That's the worst one to me. Seating wise, that was the most egregious one. That's the one where I was like, I thought that team would be a 5 or I thought they'd be like a 6. And an 8, putting them on the 8-9 line. Right. I think there's a lot of 1 seeds this year that are not happy. This might be the one year where you go, why did I get a 1 seed? I should have been a 2 or a 3.
Right. Yeah. I hear you. And speaking with injuries, did you notice that every team that had a player, that was recently injured or basically recently injured, every coach came out before the selection Sunday and said, "Oh, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine." And I believe that. I believe that is about as far as I can throw them, because I don't know how much injuries play a role. In the past, teams have actually been lowered in their seeding. I can remember when Kenyon Martin was hurt for Cincinnati. Cincinnati was clearly probably the number 1 overall seed, but I think they dropped him down to shoot, I don't remember what they dropped him down to. Maybe just a 2, but they did drop them. But Kenyon Martin was that team. But it was just kind of funny how every coach came out and said, "Oh yeah, my players are going to be fine. We shall see how fine they're going to be." Like Cooper Cup, like if what would have happened if Duke said, "Well, we're not sure he's going to be able to play. It doesn't look good for him to play. At least the first 2 games." Would they have dropped him? Should they have dropped him? Yeah.
I just, to me, I hate that. They're a 1 seed. Injuries happen. If Flag blew his knee out and was done for the year, then guess what? The 16 seeds would be licking their chops going, we got a chance. But I'm not going to punish the rest of the roster because one guy.
Sure, yeah.
I got to agree with you there because the thing of it is how far do you drop them and who makes that decision?
Exactly. So they go down to a 2. Because without Cooper Flag, you can argue that team is worse than every 2 seed.
Well, so I saw someone for Vegas say the other day that he was worth 7 points a game.
On the line, or like
on the line?
like,
sorry. I was like,
on
what
the
the hell is
line.
he talking about?
Yeah,
like
no,
20. I do
he
say,
was
yeah.
worth he would drop. If he's in, the spread would go up 7. If he's out, it would go down 7.
If you told me him and Malik Brown, because I think Malik Brown, might be their second most important player, not best, but most important on the defensive end. Like if you told me both of those 2 are going to miss, I'm not confident they get out of the first weekend. But I'm not going to play that game because, like you said, how is that fair? So if Cooper Flag worth a 1 drop, is worth 4 drops, but then if Louisville said how much is somebody else from Louisville? They were this 1 seed, they moved to a not like it's too arbitrary to me. You get the seed that you earned, and if you're hurt, that's basketball. That's sports. As a Warriors fan, I should have another ring on my metaphorical finger, but I watched KD blow his Achilles and a game later watched Klay tear his ACL. It happens. It happens. It would suck. I hope it doesn't. I'm glad Cooper's okay and looks like he will suit up and play. It's awesome. But like, come on, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? If they're both out,
he's not going to play in the first game. No way.
No, but you know what I mean. Like he's gonna play. Like he's gonna be in the tournament. He's locked in. He's gonna play. Like he's gonna be here for the games that matter. I hate that argument because it's like, then why do we play the games? Just roll out the computer and go, this is the best line. Have them all play 1 game and then take data from that 1 game and go, look, this was the most dominant team this year. They win. Metaphorically on a computer system, theoretically they win. Why are we playing? Injuries happen. Like I would have loved to have Steel Ventures for the last 2 years. Hasn't happened. Got hurt. I'm sure Louisville would love to have Kaysen Pryor. He would have made that team would definitely not be an 8 seed if he was playing.
Well, Louisville lost Corin Johnson too.
Yeah, I was just saying, go down the list. West Virginia with
and they had 2 guys. They had 2 guys that were injured even before the season started that they redshirted.
Yeah. So it's like it pisses me off. Like this is like the best thing in sports. Why do we keep finding ways to like mess with it? Whether that's adding teams that we don't need to add, or having an arbitrary selection process that seems to get more and more obscure. And I don't know. I love the way March Madness is. Why do we keep finding ways and questioning like the integrity of it? That sucks.
Right. All right. So we're gonna move on to our bracket. And I guess, gentlemen, we'll start I guess we'll go through the first round games, and then I guess keep on working our way forward. But we'll start in the South. That's the way my bracket looks that I have. So, gentlemen, first game up in the South is Auburn against Alabama State, who won a great game last night against St. Francis.
Yeah.
Last second shot. Anybody? I guess what I'm going to ask you is some of these games, if anyone disagrees with what I'm thinking, does anyone see Auburn losing to Alabama State?
No.
All right, so
No.
Auburn moves on. Now we have Louisville and Creighton. Josh, we'll start with you. What are you thinking there?
I like Louisville here. I think Creighton's had a very good year. It was rough, losing Pop Isaacs early on in the year, but even so, second seed in the Big East. Cockburner and Ashworth have been phenomenal together. I just think what Louisville and Pat Kelsey has done here. It's been tremendous. I think, like Drew said, I think an 8 seed for Louisville is it's kind of criminal from the committee. I think they should be at least a 5 seed, and it's a hard draw as well for Louisville. Creighton, they're a very good team. Auburn as well. I just think Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Edwards Jr. I think it's a lot of offense for that Creighton defense, who are metrically is a pretty good defensive team. I think Jemiah Neal can do a pretty good job on Terrence Edwards, but I still think Louisville has this game.
All righty. I'm gonna disagree with you. I really kind of, at the Big East tournament where I was that I attended, there was a lot of talk there that Creighton was going to be an 8 or 9 seed, and I'm like, what? The second best team in the Big East is going to be an 8 or a 9 seed? And sure enough, that's what they turned out to be, a 9 seed. I just think, by the way, Marquette's a 7 seed.
Yeah.
And
they're fifth.
Creighton is better than Marquette.
They are better. Yeah.
And so basically, I like the combination of Ashworth and Kalkbrenner. I know those guys get just, they play heavy minutes. But I don't think Louisville, well, I suppose Hepburn kind of, what's the word I want? Cancels out Ashworth. But yeah. I just don't think Louisville has anybody to match up with Kalkbrenner. I think this game's a toss-up. I'm going with Creighton. So, Drew, you got to break the tie, and we won't have moving on. We won't have the underdogs moving on. Usually we have an even number. We always tiebreakers. Underdog moves on, but this year it was just 3 of us.
Yeah, this was probably the hardest 8-9 game for me to pick in a hard. It's always a hard game to pick. I think Louisville, again, like I went on my little rant, they are underseeded by at least 2 spots, so they're super dangerous. I also think they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. I don't know if you guys watched Selection Sunday. They were pissed. Not a single player or staff member was celebrating. The fans and cheerleaders in the background were putting on a show. You could tell they were pissed. With that said, I'm going to lean ever so slightly Creighton, and my X factor, it's Kalkbrenner. That guy, they have no answer for him. I don't think anyone in the country truly does. Basically, the only way they stop Kalkbrenner is if Kalkbrenner just stops himself, gets in foul trouble, anything like that.
But that never happens. He has never fouled out of a game.
Oh yeah, no, he was my preseason pick very early in the year for Player of the Year, and he's averaging, I think, right under 20. He's averaging 29 and 3 blocks a game. I think it's a really good game. I think this has potential to be the best first round game of the tournament because it's two teams that both should have some sort of chip on their shoulder, should feel slighted. Both teams have the talent to make a Sweet 16 and Elite 8. I'm going to lean Creighton ever so slightly, and that's just because I believe Ryan Kalkbrenner is the best player in the game.
Right. All right. So now we have a really interesting matchup. UC San Diego, the 12th seed against 5 seed Michigan. And we talked about UC San Diego a little bit last week. Their metrics are amazing. They're something like 30th in the country.
They're currently 37 on Ken Palm, where they ended the regular season.
37? All right. They have Tate Jones, who's kind of like a stat sheet stuffer. He's like a point forward type of guy, but he plays a lot in the post. But I think my favorite player for them is Hayden Gray, who is not only shooting 43% from deep, but are you ready for and averaging 3.3 assists per game. But he's also averaging 3.2 steals per game. I've never heard of such a number. That's got to be leading the country.
I'm pretty sure he's leading he won Defensive Player of the Year in the conference, and I'm almost positive it leads the country. Almost positive.
Right. So, Drew, I'll let you start off here. Who do you have between Michigan and UC San Diego?
So I know that when people this is a matchup, they are possibly everyone's go-to Cinderella this year, just talking to people, especially out on the West Coast, being honest, everyone's talking about them. They're a good story. They were a D2 team not that long ago in the conference that I work in currently. I think they're a good team. I think this is not a good matchup for them physically. You have to deal with two 7-footers that run a pick and roll. Those two guys have been super effective all year in their two-man game. There is nobody on this San Diego team that can handle Golden and Wolf, both from a size standpoint, physicality standpoint. The big thing everyone's pointing to is Michigan takes terrible care of the basketball. This is a fact. And UC San Diego does a great job taking the ball away. But the question I have is, you are not going to be able to physically impose your will on this Michigan team, which I think leads to some of those turnovers. I think they're just better than a lot of those Big West teams. They're able to kind of impose themselves a little bit more. That's not physically not going to be a factor in this game. And I firmly believe that you have one of the most efficient 2-point scoring offenses in the country with Michigan, just in terms of efficiency, how they score, particularly because of those two bigs. I don't know how UC San Diego matches up with those two. Look, I can see Michigan getting nervous, getting jittery. The talk is out there. They start throwing the ball all over the place for sure. But if they just play to their bread and butter and just pound the ball inside, I don't think UC San Diego honestly has much of a chance trying to contain Golden and Wolf. So I know it's not the trendy pick, but I am going to take Michigan because San Diego has to hope Michigan's turnovers translate. And because of the physicality and athleticism disparity, I don't know if it will the way that UC San Diego's used to.
I'm going to set up a tie here, and if you would have asked me last week, I would have said Michigan, but I was critical of Michigan last week, saying they toss the ball all over the place. Then I find out that San Diego is one of the best teams in the country taking the ball away. So when I'm always looking to have at least a handful of upsets on my card, I don't want to go with chalk all the way. And I just think this is, the matchup, begs you to take UC San Diego. And the metrics, if you look at the numbers, the differential between the two teams, it's not that far. This would, according to the computers, this would not be a big upset. So I'm going to go with UC San Diego. What do you think of Josh?
I was pretty back and forth with these two teams. And I love UC San Diego. I think everything about them just screams like, a good run in them, Sweet 16 bound. But I don't know. I thought Drew had a great point about like, the two bigs, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. It's hard to really get up on those two guys. The playmaking ability of Danny Wolf has been tremendous all year, and just like how
he's not kicking the ball around.
True, when he's not, or all these turnovers of his. But I think it's hard to match up with that, and I think they have good enough guard play to beat this team. Trey Donaldson, Roddy Gale's had not the best couple months, but he's getting back into the rhythm of things. But
he pulled a hamstring in the Big Ten champ, or he came up lame, so I don't know how healthy he is. And Sam Walters, as far as I know, still isn't back. So. Walters is their best shooter. Gale is probably their best all-ball defender.
Yeah.
Now, Gale did re-enter the game in the second half, but I didn't notice how many minutes he actually played in the second half. I know he did try to come back in the game.
I mean, it's and again, you also got Namari Burnett, who's had a pretty solid season. So I think I'm leaning towards Michigan on this game here, and I think it's the big play here is it's going to come down to Vlad and Danny. So I'm going to go with the Wolverines.
Right. So now we have 13 seed Yale, who upset an SEC team last year in Auburn, going against another SEC team in Texas A&M. Josh, I'll stick with you. Who you got here? The
I'm actually going to go Yale here. I like the matchup here. I think A&M has had, rough couple games in the past, not efficient scoring, Wade Taylor, RJ Melendez, but, Yale's got, they got some guys, John Poulikitis, I think is I pronounce it,
he's a bucket.
Player of the year. Yeah, bucket, player of the year for the Ivy League, Nick Townsend. I think this team has great shooting ability. They played really well in their tournament. Just the overall season, they just dominated the Ivy League. And I just think it's a very hard matchup for A&M. So I'm going to go with Yale.
All righty. Well, I've seen Yale in person several times. Was even at one of their practices. This team, what really separated them is, first of all, they have some athletes on their team, some long athletes, including Casey Simmons and the freshman. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. These guys are really long defenders, so they play good defense, but they also dominate the boards. But Townsend is like 6'7" center, and he's built like an offensive lineman, and he plays like an offensive lineman of sorts. That he really bullies people in the Ivy League. Um, Polakidis really makes a ton of difficult shots. You know who he reminds me of is the kid from Wisconsin who hasn't really translated to the pros, the Davis kid, Jonathan Davis.
Johnny Davis. Johnny
Johnny
Davis.
Davis.
Yeah,
Johnny Davis.
yeah, Johnny Davis. Remember how Johnny Davis used to make all those
Oh
difficult
my
shots?
God.
Then he
Yeah.
got in the NBA, and what we learned from that as a talent evaluator is Johnny Davis couldn't buy himself enough space, but he could make them in the Big Ten. He can't make them in the NBA. And I think Polakidis is going to run into the same trouble. He never really creates himself enough space, and he makes so many shots you're like, no way that's going in. And it goes in. That's great in the Ivy League. He's going to be facing what I consider to be the most athletic team in the whole country. More athletic than Duke, more athletic than Auburn, more athletic than Alabama, and that's Texas A&M. Texas A&M's problem is they can't shoot, but what they do is rebound really well, and they have much more size, much more depth than Yale, and I think they're gonna beat Yale at their own game. The reason why Yale beat Auburn last year is they caught Auburn with their pants down. Also, Chad Baker Mazzara got kicked out of the game. That didn't help. But Polakidis was making a lot of shots, but they were leaving him open because of Danny Wolf. Danny Wolf isn't there this year. They're not going to be double teaming Nick Townsend. They're going to be they're going to have one or two guys chasing Polakidis all around the court. I love Yale. I love Coach James Jones, and I'll probably be rooting for him. But I think Texas A&M takes them down. Drew?
Oh, this one was hard because I'm kind of in the same boat. I really like this Yale team because they do all the things that you want from like a Cinderella. Is like they have a trio of guys. They're not just relying on one guy to be like do everything. They have Townsend, they have Polakidis, they have Mabang, so they can attack you in a couple other ways. They defend, they rebound, they don't turn the ball over,
and they shoot well.
And they shoot well. This A&M team's been an enigma for me. Like Wade Taylor's a player that I just can never fully get behind. And then I say that, and then he goes out and scores 28, and you're like, what the hell? You know, they were riding really low to end the season. Then they pick up that big Auburn win, but then they lose to Texas in double overtime. So I don't know what team's going to show up. I'm going to go with Yale because I know what Yale team's going to show up. I don't know what A&M team's going to show up. This one is like another one where I think everyone's super confident in picking Yale because they've been the dark. They've done it so many times. But like this team constantly has found ways. This program has found ways over the years to face down the bigger athletic teams and give them fits. So I'm going to take Yale, but I think this one is a close game. And I think it boils down to like, does Wade Taylor have a Wade Taylor 25-point explosion, shoots a great field percentage like from the field, or just a Wade Taylor, he hits 3 shots and he shoots his team out. Like he's the X factor because he's the most talented player on the court, but he can shoot you in and out of games very quickly. And a team like Yale is built to just, we're going to move the ball, we're going to get shots to the guys we like, we're going to rebound, we're going to defend. You have to play good to beat us. You can't. So that's where I'm going to go with. That's what
they definitely don't beat themselves. And I think the advantage they had in the Ivy League this year is they're also more athletic than most of the Ivy League.
And that's they have.
And they have positional size except for at center, but they do have a center. But I mean, that guy is about half the talent Farrell Payne is.
Oh yeah, that's not
so you know. It's not close, but you know, so Townsend really is a power forward, but a lot of times he ends up playing the 5.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are right, but I think I've seen enough of Yale and A&M this year that I just don't think it's a good matchup for Yale. All right, now we move on to a really intriguing game that I've already flip-flopped on a couple times. That's Ole Miss versus North Carolina, who blew San Diego State out of the water last night. Who you got, Drew?
God, again, two things can be true. I'm going to take UNC. I just think that if this program and this coach have found ways when they get to March with expectations, flaming out.
Wait, let me interrupt. Hubert Davis is the Wade Taylor of coaching.
Yes. You get to March with expectations, flaming out. No shot. Hell, they're not even going to get there. But you get to March with zero expectations. I think this team will find ways to rally. And RJ Dave, that trio of guards, Cadeau, Davis, you don't want to see guys like that. Like if you're Ole Miss, you're like, I don't want to deal with these guys in round one. These are the types of talent that and we'll get to this. This is a point I'll make about a lot of these matchups down the line. This is the type of team and types of players that you don't want to see in round one because we just saw what they did to San Diego State last night. San Diego State came back. They were fully healthy. Now, I don't think McGuough was fully he was not fully go. Like people were saying, he's back. He's back.
You know, people have been talking about him as a draft prospect and all this, but he's not all that. I mean, he was. They did go on a hot streak just before he got injured, and yes, he was improving as the season went on. But let's not confuse him with Ryan Kalkbrenner just yet.
Yeah, and that's totally he's going to develop, and so, but they still destroyed that team. A team that still has. They're very young compared to the Aztec teams of the last 5 years. We're very used to the Jaden Ledees and the Matt Bradleys leading the way. But back to the point, I'm going to take UNC because I think that there's a chip on their shoulder. I do think they're playing with a pride, which I respect. I really respect them, despite being a critic, understanding I have North Carolina on my jersey. This is the lowest seed the program's ever had. People are saying we don't belong here. You have an RJ Davis who I believe a good chunk of us picked to be an All-American type player, an ACC player of the year, him and Flag kind of going toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take North Carolina because I think Ole Miss just got a really bad draw here. I haven't seen as much Ole Miss. I've seen a lot of North Carolina. And when this team is on, yes, they're 1-12, but some of those games have been close. They have been battles. So I think the Tar Heels are going to figure it out and they're going to play angry, and that's scary.
Right. What do you think of Josh?
Yeah, I'm with Drew here. I'm going with North Carolina. It's really, in fact, I think just, as March goes on, you need to win in March, you need those really good guards. And, RJ Davis, Ellie Cadeau, like those guys are just, it's going to be a hard matchup for Sean Padula, Dre Davis, and it's going to be a tough task for Coach Beard. I do see this team. I'm very flip-flop with UNC. I was pretty upset to see them that they did make the tournament. And just like metrics wise, top 30, top 35 team, it's really the quad wins. But at the end of the day, like they're in it now. That game yesterday was, they're setting things straight. Like, hey, like we're here. Like we're not playing around. We're gonna kick anyone's ass if we need to. So I'm going with North Carolina.
So am I. I thought long and hard about it. And Ole Miss, of course, has much better, wins than North Carolina. But when you look at the two rosters, they're actually very similar. Neither has a dominant center, and most of them are playing like fours at the 5. But Carolina has better depth, has more athleticism, and like everywhere Ole Miss has a strength, such as, say, Sean Padula, Carolina answers with RJ Davis. You see what I'm saying? Ole Miss has Matt Morrell, but, Carolina has Ian Jackson, who might be a lottery pick. So it's just it just goes on and on and on. I just think that Carolina, the numbers would point to Ole Miss, at least the wins and losses, but I think UNC is a more talented team. All right. So now we're going to move on to Iowa State and Lipscomb. And, of course, there's a huge injury here. And Keyshawn Gilbert, who, in my opinion, is the best pro prospect. Masilovic is up there too. But I think Gilbert and Masilovic are probably their two best pro prospects. And I think Keyshawn Gilbert's been their best player this year, even though he's kind of had an off year. But he's out for the tournament. So, even so, do you guys give Lipscomb a chance, either of you?
I think they get through this one. This starts to become a serious issue, obviously, moving forward.
Josh?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with Drew here. I do think they will advance against Lipscomb, but as the tournament goes on, it's definitely going to be tougher without Keyshawn.
All right, so Iowa State moves on. So now we have Marquette in New Mexico in a really tough one to pick. Marquette's the 7th seed, New Mexico's the 10. By the way, if you guys want to know the locations of these games, I have them right here in front of me. Something we didn't have last year, which turned into a mess. We're like, where's this game being played? And somebody would say, Idaho. And then the other person would say Texas. But anyway. All right. So, Josh, who you got between Marquette and New Mexico?
I'm very flip-flop with this, Rich. I'm a Big East guy all the way to my heart. I've always rooted for the Big East teams. I mean, not anymore with UConn. I can't really stand Coach Hurley. But I
can't stand their fans either.
Oh, either their fans are it's detrimental. It's awful to listen to. But anyways,
I can't believe I almost had a guy. I don't know if I would have had the power to as the press, but there was a guy around the press section who was so obnoxious. I mean, there were little kids there, and
right? Yeah.
Every other word out of his mouth. I mean, he said some things that, I don't know, you just don't say.
You don't say in front of kids. Yeah, it's
and I was debating whether to go up and punch him or call security. But yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I've been a big fan of Coach Pitino and the Lobos this year. I think Donovan Dent and Nelly Jr. Joseph have been tremendous in the Mountain West. And when it comes to Marquette, obviously an All-American Cam Jones has been tremendous this year. I think, Chase Ross had a solid year. I'm not the biggest Stevie Mitchell fan, but he's always going to give you 100% on defense. Ben Gold too. But, I think one little trick up New Mexico's sleeve is, one person that's played against Marquette, it's Richard's dad, Rick Pitino. So, I'm sure, they're going back and forth, scheming, some little pointers about this game, what to look out for, what they need to do to stop Cam Jones. David Joplin as well. So I think it's a toss up for me, but I'm leaning towards New Mexico.
Drew?
Yeah, this is another one. I'm like, geez. First off, I'm just really excited to get Cam Jones versus Donovan Dent. I hope this is regardless of result, I just hope this is a Donovan Dent coming out party because again, I feel the guy's been disrespected all year. Not here. Just for folks know.
Sure. Yeah,
we've talked about him and said that he is one of the star players that I think could have a breakout.
We predicted he would be Player of the Year.
Yeah. Oh man, but I actually love Josh's point on obviously the father-son connection. Funny enough, both these teams have played St. John's, and I mean it was much earlier in the year, but New Mexico did give the Johnnies a decent game, way back when. But the Mountain West just loves to break hearts, particularly mine in this tournament. See last night. This is really hard. I think I'm gonna go with Marquette. I just think they're a little bit more battle tested. I think that Cam Jones is a better player than Donovan. I'm not saying by vast margins, but I do think Cam Jones gives them that best player in the game edge. Again, I don't think it's grand at all. I think it's very slim, but I think at the end of the day,
Donovan Dent's a better shooter. Cam Jones is a little bigger.
Yeah, it's this is another kind of coin flip game. I'm gonna take Marquette, but there's a part of me that hopes, Rich, you take New Mexico, that you take the Lobos, so I can be like, cool. It didn't break my heart too much, but I'm gonna lean Marquette. They're a little bit more battle tested. I mean, they've lost 3 of their last 4, but that's against UConn, and then 2 games against St. John's, one where they took them to overtime. So it's like none of those losses scare me. Whereas other teams, I get a little bit worried if you're coming in kind of riding a little bit of a losing streak. So I'll take the Golden Eagles in a very close one.
I like New Mexico. and I thought about this. I went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And basically, Marquette, for a team that doesn't really have any post offense, they also can't shoot.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
like
no,
30,
they can't.
they're like 31% on the year. And I watched David Joplin go like 1 for 10, in their loss in the Big East tournament. If Marquette can't knock down threes and force turnovers, they're dead. And I don't think they have an answer for Nelly Jr. Joseph. I don't think he's the greatest center in the world, but I still don't think they're going to have an answer for him. And here's the thing. Marquette is one of the best at forcing turnovers and having a positive turnover differential, but so is New Mexico. They're two of the best teams in the country in that department. So turnover battle might be the determinant here, but even so, I still think New Mexico has a significant edge in terms of post offense. So that's what I'm going with. All right, next up we have 2-seed Michigan State against Bryant, and I will say I doubt anyone's picking Bryant, but had Bryant maybe had a better seed, it might be a team worth, if they weren't playing such a tough team, because Bryant does have some talent. This team is not devoid of talent. This is not a pushover team, but I don't see them having a chance against what I consider to be the deepest team in the country. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for Bryant. I'm a big Rafael Pinzon fan, St. John's guy, but I think just they're defensively this team, it's a lot for any team in this tournament. So I just think it's a lot. So I'm gonna go with Michigan State here.
Yeah, me too. So we'll move them on. Do you want to stay in the South since we already have these teams fresh in our head and just all right, so
Yeah.
now in the next round we have Auburn versus Creighton. Drew?
I'm gonna take Auburn here. I think this is gonna be one of the most fun big man matchups we have. Janai Broom versus Ryan Kalkbrenner is gonna be awesome. I do think this is a game. I just think Auburn just has more horses to go, whereas I think Creighton is, and you kind of touched on it, Rich. They're gonna ride Ashworth and Kalkbrenner as far as they can take them. And had they got off that 8-9 line, I think this Creighton team could very easily make like I said, an Elite Eight type run. But I think they just run into a team that is not playing their best basketball, and I'll get to that point a little bit later. But there's just more weapons they can throw at you. They can hit you with Janai Broom. Baker Mazara is going to get thrown out of the game, or he's going to go for 15. Pettiford's been one of the most explosive freshmen. So I just think there's too many body blows for Creighton to absorb through this one.
Yeah, I agree. Josh?
Yeah, I'm with Drew here. I'm going to go with Auburn. I love Creighton. I think they're a very fun team to watch. I love Jemiah Neal. I think he's a great wing for them. But again, it's too much for Creighton. All these big guys. Janai Broom, Miles Kelly. Even Dylan Cardwell is. Doesn't really score a lot, but defensively he's one of the best rebounders out there.
Denver Jones.
Denver Jones too, yeah, and
Taylor Johnson. It just goes on and on.
Goes on and on. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I'm sticking with Auburn here.
All right. So the next round we have two teams that I don't have in my bracket in this spot, and that's Michigan versus Yale. So Danny Wolf versus Yale. How do you like that? So who you got here, Josh? Michigan or Yale?
I think I'm going to go Michigan here. I think again, I think Yale is a great offensive team. John Poulikitis, great player. I just think they are definitely one of the more athletic teams from the Ivy League for sure. I just think it's going to be hard to match up with Vlad and Danny. I think Danny's going to also have a big chip on his shoulder going up against his old team. So yeah, I'm going to go with Michigan here.
Drew, I too see Michigan only because of the reason I think there's a much better chance that Michigan will be there than Yale. I think Texas A&M has a better shot.
Yeah, I think this is where for Yale it ends. I think again Michigan is just once again is going to just ride that 2-man game with 7 footers, which you just don't see. And I think Wolf does play with a chip on his shoulder. And, again, while they throw the ball around a lot, I do think that they are coming in hot. They're obviously playing some of their best ball of the season. You win that tournament, you come out, excuse me, firing there. So I'll take the Wolverines. But I think Yale is going to be one of those just super tough out teams where you have to play good against them. You can lose this tournament because of one bad 5 minute stretch anywhere in a game. And I don't think while Yale might not have a 5 minute stretch where they blow you out of the water and blow a game open, I don't think they have a 5 minute stretch where they shoot themselves in the foot. Michigan very easily could, but I'm going to go on the talent. I'm going to ride the hot hand. I'll take the Wolverines.
Okay, so Michigan advances. All right, so now we have UNC versus Iowa State at less than 100%. Drew, what are you thinking here?
Oh my God, I'm gonna take UNC. I'm just gonna ride the hot. I'm gonna ride the hot hand here. I think this is a game now where those injuries start to matter, just because again of the explosiveness of UNC. Part of this is me just kind of banking on the March Magic again, just the flamethrowers that can exist on that team, and that for whatever reason they like to play good when everyone counts them out. I just think this is a matchup where like when you don't have your top dogs to go blow for blow with theirs, it can get kind of interesting. I also think this Iowa State team just haven't been the same team. And I know injuries is a huge part of
their
that.
guards have been in and out of the lineup for about the past month.
Yeah, that's not saying that like I know it's an injury related thing. This is not a, it's if they're fully healthy, this team is a Final Four. Fully healthy, this team is a very, very solid Final Four pick. And it's probably a 2 seed given the way that they were trending. But like I just think that like they lose to BYU because BYU can shoot the ball. We know North Carolina's going to get shots up. North Carolina's going to, like you said, they don't really play with the center, so they'll space and pace. They'll get out. They'll run and gun. They've lost their last 2 matchups to BYU, who play kind of similar, like let's get shots up kind of style. So, I just think that UNC is going to catch fire, hold fire, and again, at that important matchup spot, they're not going to have the counterpunch they need. If you have a Lipsy and a Gilbert, I feel a lot better about those two facing off against an RJ Davis and a Cadeau but without them, now it's like if RJ Davis goes
Lipsy should be good to go, but
is he going to play? I know he's listed. Everyone I've seen he's so quick. Okay, if he's going to play, that helps. That does ease a little bit, but I'm still going to ride hot hand. I'll take North Carolina.
What do you think of Josh?
I was a big Iowa State fan this season. I thought they've done a tremendous job. I'm a big fan of Coach Otzelberger. I think he's done a great job with the Cyclones. But again, like this is going to come down with the injuries, and losing Keyshawn Gilbert, that's a hard person to lose. So I'm with Drew here. I'm going to ride the hot team. I'm going to go with UNC here. I think it's again, the tough guard play in RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau. It's gonna be hard for those teams. I mean, even a guy like Seth Trimble coming off the bench too. Like that's you're getting good depth there. Ian Jackson. I'm a little worried about their forward and center play for UNC. I think Momcilovic can have a good game on that end, but I'm still gonna go with UNC.
Right. I would probably go with Iowa State, but I think this game's a toss-up. I thought Iowa State had early in the season, I thought they were a Final Four team.
Yeah.
But I think the guys they brought in to play center have been a disappointment. They really haven't brought a lot to the table. And now you take Gilbert out of the equation. I can definitely see where you guys are going, though. I would probably go with Iowa State, but yeah. All right, now we have New Mexico and Michigan State. Anyone see Michigan State losing to New Mexico?
Mm-mm.
Everyone says no. So now,
unfortunately,
we go back to the top of the bracket. We have Auburn versus Michigan. Anyone voting for Michigan? All right,
nope.
So we have Auburn moving on. So now we have UNC against Michigan State. Josh?
I think this is where UNC's run ends. Sorry. I'm going to go with Michigan State here. I think just the depth and defensive play of Coach Izzo's team is going to be a lot for North Carolina.
The size
as well. I was Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper, like those are big guys. Been playing really well as of late. They have great guard play. I think Trey Holloman, Jace Richardson's looked like almost like a lottery pick at times as well. He's been playing good ball. I think it's just gonna be hard for UNC, so I'm gonna go with Michigan State.
All right. So now we have I too am picking Michigan State, so we'll move them on. So now we have to get into the Final Four. We have 1 seed Auburn against 2 seed Michigan State. Who you got, Drew?
Give me Sparty.
Whoa!
Give me Sparty. I think Auburn has obviously looked great all year up until the last couple weeks. I think that does. I think they might be victims of having peaked just a little too soon. I think that when you carry that target on your back, I know that's a hard thing to carry on, but like I would have much rather seen if this team had done what UConn did maybe 2 years ago, or what was it, 3 years ago now, where they had that little like 5 game skid stretch in the middle of their season and then started to right the ship. I'd feel a lot better. But like you've lost 3 of your last 4. You know, I don't trust Chaz Baker-Mazara.
I don't trust the team in general because he's not the only emotional player on the team.
I don't trust Bruce Pearl, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Like he's only gotten to one. I think he's got one second weekend plus appearance in his resume, if I'm not mistaken.
He got to the Final Four with a few years.
Yeah, ago. No, that team I think is the only time he's gone Sweet 16 and above. If I'm not mistaken.
Akpara.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Or Chimo Kiki, didn't they have him?
Right. But yeah, right.
So I think that just across the board, there's kind of those red flags, and I'm like, who's the one guy you don't want to see if you're kind of an emotional team? Your coach is a bit of a hothead. You probably don't want to run into a guy like Izzo, whose team is super physical, super deep, and there's nothing you can do that this guy hasn't seen before. So I think, yeah, I'm taking Michigan State because they're going to match anything Auburn tries to throw at them. Michigan State's going to take on the chin and throw one right back, and they're not worried about foul trouble. They know that they have the size to match up with guys like a Janiyah Broome, and they have a coach that nothing that they can like. There's nothing that's going to rattle that team. That team is so together. I feel like, which is a huge far cry from where they were last year, where I think that team was falling apart at the seams. So yeah, no, Michigan State's taking this one to the Final Four.
Josh?
I'm actually going to go Auburn here. I think they've definitely had a rough patch recently. I think they definitely peaked at the wrong time. But again, I've watched a lot of Michigan State basketball, in Big Ten, and I think the lack of shooting has it's caught my eye a lot. I think at times, even, you can only do so much with this Michigan State team, Auburn hasn't, they've done a tremendous job all year round, most quad 1 wins in the whole country. I think it's just going to be, I think also just conference wise, I think SEC has done a tremendous job this year compared to the Big Ten, who've done a pretty good job, bringing in eight teams as well. But I think just it's a lot of shooting on this team. I think Janiyah Broome, well, they do match up well. I think, they can do pretty well with Jackson Cole or Carson Cooper. I still think it's going to be a lot for him, and he still has players that he can pass out to on the wings and knock down a couple threes. And that's kind of the issue that I see with Michigan State. They're going to collapse a lot on Janiyah Broome, I think, and they're going to find their shooters outside, Miles Kelly, Tahad, Denver Jones. So I'm going to go with Auburn here.
All right. I have to break the tie. And I won't repeat everything that Drew said, but I just really like the cohesion of this Michigan State team, where Auburn gives me this vibe. They give me this vibe that they don't handle adversity very well. And it's almost like it all kind of went to their head too early, like they peaked too early. And they just, Broome, is always mouthing off to opposing players or the referees. And they just don't seem to have the humility and the discipline needed, where they think they seem to have kind of bought into their own hype and think they're better. And I think they've given the image to me that they think they're unbeatable, and they've been anything but lately. Also, defensively, this team does a really good job against teams that shoot the three, and that's Michigan State's weakness. But teams that can take it inside can give this team some trouble, I believe. I would say, I'm just going on a gut feel here because the numbers will point to Auburn. All right, so now we'll move on to the Western region, and we'll start off with Florida's the number 1 seed against 16 Norfolk. Drew, you see Norfolk upsetting Florida here? I don't either. We'll move Florida along. All right, so now we have interesting 8-9 matchup between UConn and Oklahoma. Drew, who you got here?
Man, I'm gonna take UConn. I just think that there's enough talent, there's enough coaching, there's enough experience to get through this matchup. I'm not super high on this team overall. Actually, outside of Liam McNeely, I there's a lot of guys that I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, we know. Yeah, I know. There's one guy in particular who comes to mind. But I'm going to take UConn here. I think that there's just enough of a championship pedigree on the staff. There's enough players that have been there. And I think Liam McNeely, I really like that kid. I think he's made the right stuff. I could totally see him having like a big March moment because he has had moments throughout the year. I mean, their worst stretch of basketball, not surprisingly, coincided when he wasn't out there. So
yeah.
I'm gonna take UConn in this one.
Yeah, I really like Solo Ball on this team. I
Yeah.
think he's a pro. Caravan, I think, has been slowly slipping down draft boards, and I think
He hurt himself.
I think we've seen that he's really a complementary player. He's not which doesn't mean he won't play in the NBA.
For sure, but he's not the guy that I think everyone thought he was going to be or could be.
But I too favor UConn now. Everyone says, look at Fierce. Fierce has gone off against big teams and put up huge numbers against really good teams and led Oklahoma to wins. But Oklahoma's lost a lot of games, and sometimes they look really ugly doing so. And when you look at this team, I mean, there's not much beyond Fierce.
Yeah.
And Fierce could be countered by McNeely. So.
Yep.
I don't know. I say we move UConn along. So I'm going to give you a chance to talk here, Josh. We have an interesting matchup of 5 seed Memphis against Colorado State, the 12 seed, and Tyrese Hunter came up lame during the American Conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know exactly if he's going to be available for this game.
I'm not the biggest Memphis fan. I think they've done a pretty good job this year. I think they've dominated their conference, the American Conference. Had some good wins. They beat the UConn and the Maui. But this Colorado State team has done a tremendous job as of late. I'm really loving Nike Clifford, I think his name is. Neek.
Oh my God, he's been putting up huge numbers.
Huge numbers. But then again, I'm looking at Memphis, PJ Haggerty, All-Americans, had a tremendous year for them.
He's been putting up huge numbers too.
He also putting up numbers as well, which is, I think this can be a great matchup. I do think it's going to be hard for Colorado State. I think it's not just Haggerty, Tyrese Hunter, who may or not play. I think Colby Rogers, he's not the most efficient shooter, but he'll get you a couple threes even so. Dane Danger's had a good year.
Oh, Dane Danger is getting better and better, getting more into the system.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to go with Memphis here.
Right. I hear you. Neither team is deep. Okay. Yeah. And I'm not sure how Colorado State does it because beside Clifford, there's nobody on that team that really stands out talent-wise. And I look at, I watch the game and I'm like, how does Colorado State do this beside Clifford? And then before the game's over, Colorado State's winning by 25. So I don't know how they do it beside Clifford, but the fact that Hunter, like I said, both of these teams have really thin benches. Yeah, I mean, he's their point guard. I know Haggerty could play some point guard, but I'm just going to go. And God, I am so scared because Colorado State is like the poster child for Mountain West failures. They're like they're like the leading one who always fails to come through. But I'm going with them again. So Drew, you got to break the tie.
I mean, I took them to win the Mountain West tournament.
You did?
Like I love Nick Clifford. I mean, Richie and I have talked about him now for 2 years, and it was awesome to see him emerge as like where he was kind of the sidekick last year to emerge as the guy and like be the guy. I mean, he's done everything. He's been one of the best individual players in the country.
He's a guard and he's averaging almost 10 rebounds a game.
I think he's averaging 19, like 9.5, and like 3. I mean, he's been awesome.
Yeah.
Even if you take the Mountain West, we make the jokes. Teams that have to go on those like deep runs historically don't do well in the tournament because there's just an element of fatigue. I mean, I think NC State was the exception to that rule.
Funny, NC State had to go on a similar run when Valvana was there and they won the national championship.
Yeah, no, they had to beat Samson.
Just to get in.
To get in. Oh man. My heart tells me Colorado State. I'm gonna approach this as Memphis is healthy. I'm gonna approach it as healthy because that's the information that I have. I'm gonna say that Hunter plays, and I'm gonna take Memphis because I think they just have too many guys, and I think Haggerty can kind of like star for star go with Neek. I mean, we just saw him at 42, and the guy's averaging like 24. He's averaging 23 points a game, like that.
Yeah.
And I think the X factor to me is Dane Danger. I love that kid's game as a post awesome. Appreciator.
He's becoming a great passer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As like a Drew Timmy stan, I love a big man who plays in the post, hooks, up and unders, can pass. I think he's the X factor. I don't think they have an answer for him. I think
they don't really.
Yeah, even if Neek has a big game, I could see Haggerty kind of cancel him out, at least on a points production basis. And when the shot clock gets low, and if Hunter is out there, even if he's not, when in doubt, drop it off to the big fella. You're getting a high percentage to look at the rim. Whereas Colorado State's basically hoping Nick Clifford can make some magic happen for either himself or everyone else. So I'll take Memphis.
All right. This game, the next game, which is 4 seed Maryland against 13 Grand Canyon, I thought about a lot. And the reason is because Tyen Grant Foster, is now back healthy, and he hasn't played for a good portion of the season.
And he was bad when he was playing.
Huh?
He was not good when he was.
Right, yeah. but he really wasn't like stellar in the tournament, but at least he got his feet wet. And here's the thing. What I guess my point is, I don't think we've seen Grand Canyon at its best yet.
For sure, I agree with that.
And you could arguably say that this team should be better than it was last year. I mean, on paper they should be, but Foster's injuries have played a role in it. Having said all that, since I really still haven't seen I'd be basically banking on what Grand Canyon did last year. I got to go with Maryland here. What do you think of Josh?
Yeah, I'm with you, Rich. I think it's, I'm a big fan of the Crab Five. I think just what they've done this year, what Kevin Willard's done this year, it's awesome to see. I'm a huge Derek Queen fan. I think I said before, but I think this man will be a top 10 pick in this upcoming draft. I think he's a very good player. Jacoby Gillespie, Rodney Rice has a insane shot. I think just Julian Reed's been playing really good ball as of late. I'm a little worried. I think they will win this game, but I'm a little worried for Maryland in the next couple games or even round of 32 because of the lack of depth of this team. And even though I think
5 guys,
yeah, exactly. And you got I think Jordan Geronimo as your 6th man, and he's
right.
And he's not the best player out there, but I do like Maryland here though.
All right, so do I. So we'll move them along. All right, now we have another interesting matchup. We have Missouri, who I put the curse on when I said they were a badass team. We could make the Final Four, and then they haven't won since. And Drake, friend of the show, Bennett Sturts. And you know what? Drake poses the most interesting problem to any team in the country because they play at the slowest pace in the country. They're the new Virginia. And they also give up the fewest points per game in the country partially because of that slow pace. So, who you got here, Drew? Missouri or Drake?
Another popular upstate pick. I am gonna take Drake because I think they're going to throw an absolute. As someone who has had to suffer through St. Mary's games my entire life, I know how that style of play, especially when you're not used to it, can completely throw you off. Now it puts onus on Drake. They have to be efficient. They have to score because when you don't leave a lot of time, but I think they can do that. I think they're well coached. I think this Missouri team is reeling right now. Like I think they're just not playing good basketball. Like and that has to matter. And their thing is offense. Like they are the number 5 offense in terms of offensive efficiency. Defensively, they're they're in the 70s, so they're not like stellar. They're not horrible, but they're not stellar. I just think that Drake is going to impose their style of play on this game. This pick is either going to be like genius or they're not going to be able to match up physically and the old adage of athleticism. But I'm gonna take Drake because I've seen time and time again what that style of play can do to even the most talented rosters and the best players. And like we are talking, they are literally the slowest team in the country. It's not they are 364 out of 364 in tempo. They are going to make you play their style. They don't turn it over. They
Bradley,
sorry,
they
don't.
They beat
They
Bradley in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. Bradley, I believe, leads the nation in 3-point shooting.
Yep.
They held Bradley to like 43 points or something like that in the championship game.
Yeah, so I think that like this is going to be the most disgusting style of play for teams that want to play fast. It just is. It literally just is. I think it's kryptonite. So I'm going to take Drake because I've seen it one too many times what that nasty rock fight style of basketball does, and if it can work against some of those Gonzaga teams the last couple of years, it can work against this Missouri team who's not playing great right now.
Right. Missouri is got a good mix of veterans and young kids. They have a lot of guys who can score. And I think Caleb Grill has really, after shooting the lights out early in the season, has kind of gone into a slump. And I think that's been one of the things that's contributed to Missouri's woes. Missouri's very deep. And of course, Dennis Gates plays around with the lineup a little too much for my taste. They are very athletic and they're big. The only thing they really lack is a really good center. Their centers slow them down, actually. This team could really run with anybody if they wanted to, but their centers are like 300-pounders. I don't know why Gates brings those guys in because they don't really fit with the rest of the team. Having said that, the talent is so overwhelming that I have to go with Missouri. I thought long and hard about Drake for all the reasons Drew said, but I'm going with Missouri thinking, I really kind of fell in love with this team up until like 2 weeks ago. And I'm just thinking I hate to say it, but they're playing a bunch of D2 guys and at least former D2 guys. And so if they take Drake seriously, they should win. Josh, you got to break the tie.
I was leaning back and forth with this. I really like Drake. I think Coach McCollum is a phenomenal coach in comparison to Dennis Gates, who's done a pretty good job this year. In all things considered, last year was a pretty abysmal year for Mizzou. But then again, like you said, Rich, it's the talent that I'm seeing on this Mizzou team. Tamar Bates, Caleb Grill, even Tony Perkins has been playing really well as of late too. Mm-hmm. So my heart says Drake, but I think it's just too much for them. So I'm going to go with Mizzou.
Yeah, that's what pushed me over the edge.
Yeah,
was basically I'm like, can all this talent lose to a bunch of guys that are playing D2 last year?
I don't know.
I mean, if anybody could pull it off, it's Drake with this style of ball that basically puts you to sleep. All right, we'll move Mizzou along. All right, we have Texas Tech, who had some injury issues during the Big 12 tournament. Chance Edwards, or not Edwards. Who am I thinking of? Help me out here.
Chance McMillan.
Yeah, Chance McMillan and Darian. Yeah, so during the Big 12 tournament, Chance McMillan and Darian Williams didn't play at least toward the end of the tournament in their loss when they got knocked out. Also, JT Toppin got ill during that game. But I haven't heard anything more about that. But apparently, Texas Tech saying they're all going to be fine. So we'll see, because McMillan and Williams have kind of been in and out of the lineup the last couple of weeks. And they face off with UNC Wilmington. So does anyone see Tech losing to Wilmington here? All right, so we'll move Tech along. So now we have, wow. And first of all, how would you like to be St. John's and you get the winner of this game? We have Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks as the 7th seed, and John Calipari's Arkansas Razorbacks, the 10th seed. Who you got here, Josh?
My heart wants me to take Arkansas, and for that reason, why I think Kansas has had an abysmal year. I think even so, racking up 20 plus wins, and it's been in the Bill Self era. It's been, I think, one of the worst years he's had. Yeah. I think just the whole offensive scheme for Kansas has been just like, it's feeding Hunter Dickinson down low and trying to get him to make a play, or pass that to either Zeke Mayo or Rylan Griffin or AJ Storr.
Zeke Mayo, who was totally overblown.
Yeah. And DeJuan Harris has been I think he's been disappointing this year. I thought he was going to take a step forward, as the guy over there. But and I think this Arkansas team's a little sneaky as well. They're getting back, Boogie Flan, which is, I think he was one of the best players before he got injured for Arkansas. They're getting good play out of DJ Wagner. Trayvon Brazil's been playing really well as of late. So I think I'm going to go with Arkansas here.
Drew, what are you thinking?
Oh, gross. Oh, man. This is one where I'm just kind of like almost closing my eyes and just pick, because talent-wise, like coaching names, talent-wise, you would expect this to be like chance to go to the Final Four on the line or something. Man, this one's really hard. I think I'm gonna go Arkansas. I think Kansas mentally is quit. There's a part of me that thinks like some of the I think Hunter Dickinson is like kind of just done. Like I don't know. I just
Dickinson hasn't looked really into it all season.
Not really a fan. I mean, he was a 3rd-team All-American, so I mean,
he put up the numbers, but he's looked disinterested.
That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna go Arkansas, because I think with Arkansas, like there's still. I've never been a big Cal guy, X's and O's, but I do think the team is like trying, and they're trying to fight, and like Josh said, they're getting healthy, and that matters this time of the year. Kansas, I could see them just being like, whatever, and just kind of like get almost like if they get down, similar to what happened with Gonzaga last year. They played Gonzaga, who was peaking and had a lot of they were rallying, and Kansas was kind of falling apart, injuries and stuff, and they got popped by almost 30. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, because at least they're healthier. But like, I just can see Arkansas like just wanting it more than Kansas, and if they get down, 8 or 10, I can just see Kansas kind of throwing in the towel. This one's really hard, because talent-wise, Kansas on paper has a talent to beat literally anybody. Again, we saw them beat Duke earlier in the year.
Well, that's assuming Ryan Griffith and AJ Storr would have actually showed up this year. That's what I'm saying.
Like on paper, there's this like weird, could those guys revert back to their pre-Kansas selves for a 2-3 game stretch?
I don't even think AJ Storr's he's hardly getting any run anymore.
Yeah, he's out of the lineup. But so I'm gonna take Arkansas. But I mean, this one's, I don't know. Enjoy the slop. Not really sure.
I am going with Arkansas for the same reason. This Kansas team hasn't looked right all year. and I think Arkansas has much more fight. And even though they lost their star player, Adu Fierro, and he's not expected to be available at least for the first couple of games. Now he's been out for at least a couple of weeks, so he's not supposed to not expected to be available for this game. Kansas just doesn't look right. Part of me though keeps on going back to what happened last year, and I can't forget what John Calipari did to me last year when I thought that Kentucky team with those guards, Reed Shepherd and the rest, I thought, man, what an amazing team this is. Kentucky's going to win it all. And I think I had them winning it all. And they fucking go down into Oakland. Oakland, a team I didn't even give a second thought to. Actually, no, I didn't give a first thought to Oakland. There was no way I thought Oakland could beat Kentucky last year. And Calipari let it happen somehow. So, with that said, I think Kansas has a better coach, but there's something wrong with this team. It's not right. All right, now we got the Johnnies against Omaha. Anybody like Omaha?
Nope.
All right, so now we'll go back to the top of the bracket. Florida, UConn. Anybody see Florida losing to UConn? Me neither. All right, how about Memphis, Maryland? Josh?
I like Maryland here. I think it's going to be a lot for Memphis to handle. I think just the shooting and just just even like the center play as well. I mean, you've got good playmaking ability within Derek Queen and Julian Reese. I think it's gonna be hard for Dane to kind of keep up with those guys. I think Derek Queen's very quick on his feet for a big man. Then even so, you're going out to either Selton Miguel or Rodney Rice for a three. So I think I'm gonna go with Maryland here.
Yeah, I think this is a close one because neither team has a great bench.
Yeah.
But we're counting on Tyrese Hunter being, to pick Memphis, you got to be counting on Tyrese Hunter to be there. And you're counting on them to get by Colorado State, which is not a given. So I got to go with Maryland too. Drew, I'll start with you with the next one. We got Mizzou versus Texas Tech.
I took Drake in this game, so I don't even know if they can get past it. I'm going to take Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is just better. I think they're playing better basketball. I mean, they lost in Arizona in a good game, but coming into that, they were rolling pretty good there. I mean, JT Toppin is an All-American. JT Toppin is on a lot of people's like kind of shorter list for Player of the Year candidates. I know he won't get it, but he's in that category. I think that they've got a lot of guys that they can kind of ride. I just think, honestly, I'll put it this way. Texas Tech's a better team, in my opinion. I'll take them.
Yeah. I assume you agree, Josh, since you picked.
Yeah, I'm also, yeah.
Yeah, and I like Tech. Again, Mizzou might not even get this far because of that weird matchup with Drake. All right. St. John's in Arkansas. Why does this seem to have a ring to it? Did they play recently? Or am I just thinking of the Mike, who was the
Mike Anderson?
Mike Anderson connection? Is that what I'm thinking of?
He might have coached at Arkansas.
Oh, he did. He did. He
yeah.
definitely coached there before he went to St. John's. But anyway, Josh, any chance Arkansas can beat upset the Johnnies?
I hope not. I hope the Johnnies keep going with this. But you never say never. I think it's I do like the matchup. I think it'll be pretty interesting to see how Arkansas will match up with the Johnnies. I think the Johnnies have a lot of great wings. I think Aaron Scott and RJ Lewis, Player of the Year. It's going to be hard for those guys to defend and just even like rebounding. I saw a stat where Zuby Ejiofor is averaging almost like 4 offensive rebounds a game, which is unreal. He's been an absolute monster for the Johnnies, so I'm going to go with St. John's here.
Drew?
I think St. John's takes Arkansas' soul here. I just don't think Arkansas wants. I think they'll put up an effort, but I don't think they want anything to do with St. John's.
Yeah.
I think St. John's is going to come in and just kind of punch them in the mouth. And I think Pitino is just so much better of a coach than Calipari is anyways. So I think they're going to be better prepared. They're more physical. They're the better team. There's a reason 1-2, 1-7. This
I
one's
don't
kind of a
think
no-brainer.
Patino and Calipari like each other too much.
They don't. They don't.
Yeah, exactly. That's what, like, I just think that like St. John's, like, they have taken on the identity of that coach, and it's going to be known in that locker room that, hey, Rick's not a fan of John, and so I think the players are going to wear that, and I think they're going to come out and snatch their soul.
And
This is a
Arkansas
very easy game.
is so much younger.
Yeah,
So
that is
much
just
younger.
they're going to just physically. I think they're going to bully them.
Yep. All right. So now, to get into the Final Four in the Sweet 16, we have Florida versus Maryland. Anyone see Florida losing here?
Mm-mm.
Me neither. All right. Now we have Texas Tech and St. John's. Wow, this is going to be a dilemma for Josh because he picked Texas Tech to go to the Final Four, and
Yeah.
this is a good matchup if Texas
I think
Tech
it
is
is
healthy.
I think it's gonna be a great game. I was very high on Texas Tech. And I love my Johnnies, and I don't know. It's a toss up for me. My heart's always pulling for the Johnnies. That's my team. But I don't know. I think it's gonna be tough for St. John's to beat Texas Tech. So I think I'm gonna go with Texas Tech here.
Wow. Drew, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
This is another one, much like if you don't know anything about me outside of Gonzaga, like I love these defensive-minded teams. My second favorite team over this since I've known Rich has been Houston. St. John's fits that like a glove. I just think this is a game where the offense becomes an issue. I know St. John's can guard anyone in the country. I think Texas Tech can guard most people in the country. Like, I think they're a solid defensive team. All the metrics point to them being a very solid team. Might not elite, but offensively they are better. They take care of the basketball. Their turnover percentage isn't super high. It's in I think like the 14s, which is pretty average. Like it's nothing great. So it's like I just think the offense, St. John's will do what they do. They're gonna fight like hell, but I think Texas Tech just has more ways to beat them offensively. And if the shooting, as we've talked about, for St. John's evaporates or kind of, it's just a bad shooting night for them. You start going like, man, this is a team that could hit like 2 or 3 threes max in a game. And in today's college basketball landscape, that just it's not conducive. So this one hurts. I really hope these matchups happen because it's in my backyard and I'm planning on going. So I would love to see this game. I'm going to take Texas Tech, but I think this is going to be like an awesome game. I just think Texas Tech is more well-rounded than St. John's. All right.
Well, you guys, I have to disagree. I like St. John's in their matchup. I just do. I've seen both teams in person. I know that Texas Tech can shoot it better, but I don't think they can match St. John's physicality. I just don't think they have the size, even the depth, maybe it's needed. So I would go with St. John's, but in our bracket, we're moving Texas Tech ahead. All right.
I hope you're right, Rich. I hope you're right.
Now
I would have no problem with if St. John's makes a deep run. I am all in on that.
I would love that. It'd be awesome.
I'm a big fan of that team.
So does anyone see Texas Tech beating Florida?
Mm-mm.
All right. We haven't even said a word about Florida yet, and we have them in the Final Four. All right. We will talk about them when we come back to that region. All right. So now let's move on. Anyone see Duke, even without Cooper Flagg, losing to American or Mount St. Mary's?
CJ McCollum's not walking through that door anytime soon, so I do not believe that I do not think Duke is too worried.
Yeah.
Okay. We have Mississippi State, Baylor. That's a toss-up. Who you thinking, Drew?
Yeah, this is like a total toss-up. Out of all the 8-9 games, I think this one's like it's unlike the Louisville Creighton one where I think that's gonna be like a great game. This one I kind of not really like. I think both teams have been very mid this year. I'll be completely honest. I'm just gonna go Baylor because I've always been a fan of Norchad Omier. I think you can't go wrong here. I'm gonna take Baylor.
Yeah, I like Baylor too. Mississippi State certainly, Baylor has depth issues, has size issues since they lost their center. But Mississippi State has dropped 5 of their last 7, and the only wins over that period both came against LSU. Mississippi State really hasn't looked right all year. They're not as good as I expected them to be. VJ Edgecombe, it just seems to be getting better and better. I like Baylor here, so we'll move them on. All right, so now we have Oregon versus Liberty. And I'm going to go right here and tell you right now, this Liberty team doesn't have any size. But and they don't play. Obviously, the Conference USA is not what it used to be. First of all, but it's just not a very good conference anymore. But Liberty can shoot the lights out. They have a lot of good shooters, and they also defend the three well. So having said that, I like Oregon here. Anybody like Liberty?
I think Nate Biddle has a monster game.
Me too.
Sure.
That's what I'm thinking.
Monster game.
No one
personally.
stops Biddle on Liberty.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have Arizona and Akron. Akron, again, one of those teams that they have a lot of players. Nate Johnson is their star player, but they have a lot of guys that they're very efficient team, especially offensively. So Caleb Love has one of those nights. Maybe they go down to Akron. But anyone like Akron here?
I think it's a really fun game. I'm taking Arizona, but I think offense is going to be the name. I think it's like a really fun game to watch, but I just think Arizona's got too many weapons, too many options, and when they're firing on all cylinders, we've seen them be really good this year.
Yep.
So
agreed. All right, here's a 6-11 game, 6 seed BYU versus 11 seed VCU, and boy, the metrics say this game could be really close. Who you got, Josh?
I like BYU here. I think they've been playing as of late really good ball.
9 of 10.
9 of 10. And Richie Saunders has been tremendous for BYU. Igor Demon, he's still been playing good as of late. I just think it's going to come down for me with the shooting. I think the shooting is going to be big for this BYU team, and I think it's just going to be a lot for VCU to handle.
Yeah, I have to agree. The metrics, VCU is very efficient. They have good depth. Shogodo's really their only really star player. But the thing that concerns me about VCU is the only team that they've beaten all year that's in the tournament is Colorado State, and Colorado State needed to win their tournament just to get in. So I don't know. I think I have to go with BYU here as well. Anyone like Montana? Think Montana has a shot against Wisconsin? All right, so we move Wisconsin along. All right, here's an interesting one. We have 7 seed St. Mary's versus 10 seed Vanderbilt. Who you got, Drew?
I love the fact that Vanderbilt has a solid offense, that they get threes up, but I think St. Mary's, all biases aside, I think is going to win this game because I think they are better equipped to impose their style of play, and I just don't know if Vanderbilt has anybody. St. Mary's has very little depth, but they have huge bodies that they can throw into this game to muck things up. So I think St. Mary's wins this one. I think it's actually a pretty ugly game because I think St. Mary's style will be imposed. And I just don't think that, like, Vanderbilt's not a great offensive rebounding team. St. Mary's is a great offensive rebounding team. I don't think that – I just don't know if Vanderbilt has the horses to impose – to beat St. Mary's, you have to impose your style on them. I don't think Vanderbilt can. So I'm going to take the Gales. But until further notice, they are always on upset watch because when their offense goes, it goes quick.
Right.
And Vanderbilt, in my opinion, is a much more tested team. So I'll give St. Mary's the nod here, but this is a cautious one. I think this is if you take this 10-7 upset, I would feel pretty decent because if St. Mary's offense at all goes, they might not score 55 points.
Right. And I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I, for some reason, always seem to be dialed into this St. Mary's team when it comes tournament time, and I always pick against them, and I'm always right.
Yeah.
I just think that yes, they have this huge. St. Mary's has a huge size advantage over Vanderbilt. But if you take away the wins over Gonzaga, boy,
their schedule sucks.
St. Mary's resume really doesn't look good.
It's a donut. I've been saying it all year.
Yeah. So I'm going with Vandy here. So Josh, you got to break the tie.
Um, and I've watched a decent amount of Vandy ball, and I think they've had a great year in comparison to past couple of years. But I think just what Drew said, it's really going to come down to like how your scheme of basketball is going to be played and how you can dominate that sort of scheme. And I just think it's going to be too much for Vanderbilt to kind of match up with the offensive rebounding, just the shooting of the St. Mary's team. So I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be the most enjoyable game to watch. I think it's going to.
Oh,
I
it's gonna
will say,
suck. It's gonna
yeah,
absolutely suck. If you got to go to the dry cleaners, go to
yeah,
the
or do
gym, do
something.
it during this game. 3:15
Right,
on Friday. Do not be around for it.
but
By the way, I have
I
a dry cleaning ticket that's been in my wallet for like 2 years. I don't even remember what it's for.
well, now you can go for that game. So, but I'm going to go with St. Mary's here.
All right. No one listens to me. All right. So
Oh,
now
Rich,
we
my
have.
heart's telling me. Part of it's just I don't want to sound like a hater because I can already just see all the text messages. And you just hate them because it's St. Mary's, which is all very valid. But for what it's worth, I will say this. The one thing is they always underperform in March, in my opinion, but they do historically do well when they are the higher seed, barring the Grand Canyon game. They usually win when they're the higher seed. It's whenever they play a team that's on equal or better footing, they have zero upset upside, which
All
we'll get
right.
into.
So now we have Alabama versus Robert Morrison, and Grant Nelson is iffy for this game. He hurt his knee during the SEC tournament, or knee or leg. They haven't really specified, but I have no idea what his status is. So let's call him questionable. I don't think they need Grant Nelson to beat Robert Morris. I will say this. Alvaro Campos, which caused all kinds of comedy on this show before because he has a third name in between Alvaro and Campos. It's like it starts with an F, right?
Fulagars?
Yeah, something
Fulagars,
like
something
that.
like that?
So
Yeah.
I think he should be renamed Alvaro F. Campos.
Yes.
Like I call myself Richard C. Harris at times. He's Alvaro F. Campos. Anyway, this kid is a sophomore from Spain. He's about 6'9", 6'10". He can do everything. Assists, rebounds, shooting, inside, outside. So Alabama's probably going to put the clamps on him, but still, he's worth a look because I think he is going to be a pro sooner than later. Well, probably later. I mean, he's still young. He's only 19.
Yeah.
All right, so we have Alabama moving on. So now we have up in the top of the bracket, we have Duke versus Baylor. Anyone see Duke losing?
Nope.
No.
I don't either. Even if Cooper Flag doesn't play in this one, I still think Duke can move on just because Baylor's
Yep.
so small and just doesn't have any depth.
Yep.
All right. So now we have Oregon versus Arizona, an old Pac-12 matchup. Who you got, Drew?
I'm going to take Arizona. I think Arizona is the better team and has been playing better basketball of late. I know we kind of, myself included, kind of maybe threw some dirt on them a little too prematurely earlier in the year. I mean,
Oh, they were awful. They
didn't look good at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I know like when you look at their resume, you look at their losses and it's like outside of a loss back in early February to Kansas State, I don't think they have any loss. In that time, they've lost to Houston twice. No shame in that. They lost to BYU, who we mentioned is on an absolute heater right now. Iowa State, who we all think is Final Four upside if they're healthy. So I think Arizona's just better. I mean, I really like Biddle and I really like Jackson Selstead. I think those two are awesome players, and we'll see what the future holds for them. But I think Arizona is just a little bit better. So barring Caleb Love going completely bad, Caleb Love, I think they're just the better team.
I have to agree with Drew. I just think Arizona can beat you inside with Vasar. I think he's really been. I think he's been a huge upgrade for them. And over Krivas, Krivas to me was too soft. And Vasar plays with physicality where Krivas didn't. So I actually think it's been a blessing that Krivas was lost for the season. I'm not saying that Krivas won't be a good player, because I think he will be, but he's got to toughen up. He's got to learn how to play physical. And Vasar has brought that along, and he can even make a three once in a while. I think that the thing that stops Arizona from being a brilliant team is, beside their five best players, which aren't necessarily the guys who start, there's not a lot of talent. And the other thing is their guards are all pretty much drivers. Though Jaden Bradley has improved as a shooter. Caleb Love, when he's hot, is a great shooter, but we never know when that's going to stop. Right now he's on hot streak. And KJ Lewis is a driver. So I think ultimately what hurts Arizona is their shooting, but I see them getting by Oregon here. All right, so now we have BYU and Wisconsin. Man, I think this is a tough one. What are you thinking, Josh?
I'm gonna go BYU here. Actually, I'm not the biggest Wisconsin fan. I think
we haven't been all year since the Big Ten preview.
We haven't been, but then again, they've been proving us wrong at times. So it's
they've proven us wrong all year, pretty much.
Yeah, they have. But I just think this Wisconsin team reminds me a lot of the Johnny Davis year. I've seen a lot of John Tunji with Johnny Davis, and I don't know. I think the shooting is it's definitely there with this Wisconsin team. I'm just a little worried about the defense. I remember watching that in the Big Ten championship against Michigan, and that game was abysmal. The shooting was unreal. It was awful. I think they went like
Tunji had a rough.
He had a rough game, and I think they went like 5 of 30 from three, which was awful. And I think BYU is going to give them trouble from outside. So I think Richie Saunders is going to have a good game. I'm sure Wisconsin's going to, they're going to look at him. They're going to go at him, but they've got other players as well to go with. So I'm going to go BYU.
Drew, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go Wisconsin. Again, they've been proving us, and I think people in general, wrong all year. I mean, I know that when we look at them, everyone's going to be like, John Tonje is going to be the guy, but John Blackwell's been playing pretty well this year. I mean, they've got, 5 guys all averaging basically 10 points, more or less. I think that this game will be a fun one, because I think this game is going to be a lot of offense.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be in the 80s at least.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I totally agree with Josh and go, Wisconsin's defense, as metrically, I feel like they're one of those teams where, eye test wise, I haven't really seen it, but metrically they do grade out pretty well. They're a top 30 defense. So it's one of those ones where I'm like, what do I trust more? Like what I'm seeing versus what the numbers are telling me. I'm going to take Wisconsin. I just think BYU, always the fear with this team is when they're hot, they can play with anybody. If they get cold from deep, there's always that fear that, they can shoot themselves out of a game as a unit. I think this is a really fun matchup, but I'm going to take Wisconsin, and I think it boils down to I think they have the best player, and I think that they're a little bit more well-rounded, because I also think BYU's defense isn't super stellar. And so it's like, if they're not shooting well, I think Wisconsin get points up on them pretty efficiently.
I like BYU. Close, real close. And one of the reasons is I've seen BYU's play better defensively of late. And I think that's part of the reason why they've gone on this hot streak. They also have been limiting Demon. When he gets out of control, Kevin Young pulls him and puts in Devin Hall, who was the point guard last year and played really well. So he's also been playing with a lineup. He's also been doing like these offensive, defensive substitutions. And he's been brilliant the way he's managed his team. And this team is a lot better than it was a month ago, or definitely 2 months ago. So I respect Wisconsin. They can put up points. Their bigs can shoot. Their guards can shoot. Tunji and Blackwell can make all kinds of difficult shots. But yeah. All right. So now, Drew, I got to ask you here. St. Mary's have a chance against Alabama with the hugely contrasting styles?
I don't think so, because St. Mary's, when you go back and look at what Gonzaga shockingly took them 3 games to figure out, is they have no depth. And that in that championship game, they only shot 6 free throws, so fouls weren't even a factor. But fatigue, athleticism, they're Luke Barrett plays almost 40 minutes a game. Great story. Kid is a walk-on, gonna try to guard these elite SEC athletes. That's what they did with Battle. They literally just played a two-man game with Huff and Battle and just blew Luke Barrett off the ball. I think Alabama's gonna do the same thing, and their offense is even souped up more so. I think St. Mary's is a little beholden to the whistle. If foul trouble becomes a thing, they have no bench outside of Mikey Lewis. And even then, asking a freshman, a 6'2" freshman kind of scoring guard to come in and try to be a factor in a game of this caliber, I think they're gonna have to play the perfect game, and I don't think they can do that for
Right.
40 minutes against this Bama squad.
I gotcha. Yeah, I got to agree with you. I like Alabama here. I didn't even have St. Mary's getting this far, so
Yeah.
we'll move them on. So now we move back up to the top of the bracket. Now we get into the time where if Cooper Cup isn't 100% or isn't playing, could cause Duke some trouble. So we have Duke and Arizona, and I will be at this region, which is in my backyard in Newark, New Jersey.
I'm gonna go Duke here. I still think even without the questioning of Cooper Flag's availability, I still think they have enough star power. And Con Knipple, I think he's played a really good ball as of late. He's won ACC MVP tournament. And even Kamon Malawach has played really well for this team. Tyrese Proctor, and even the bench has done pretty well job. I think Mason Gillis has come in and done a pretty solid job. It comes down to just defensive potential, I think. And I think, with the matchups and, I think Coach Shire has done a tremendous job just, reading those sort of matchups. So I think Duke will come out on top.
Drew, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking all this as they're healthy, fully locked and loaded. I'm taking Duke. I got to give respect to the guy that I'm going to talk about because we all know Coop and all that, but I got to give Tyrese Proctor some flowers here. Rich, you and I, myself in particular, have been critical of him over the last couple of years for not showing up, not, people saying he's a lottery pick. I think he's finally found a role where he's operating more as, I guess, just a secondary guard, doing a little bit of playmaking, hit some timely shots. They're not asking him to do everything and anything. So he's finally found a role that he's starting to thrive in. We know what Cooper Flag is. I think kind of an unsung hero for this team is Sion James, the Tulane transfer. It's funny. This is the first Duke team in my lifetime. There's not a guy on this roster that I hate. I think that they have put together a group of guys who are understand their role, which is uncommon for Duke teams of recent, where it's like you got your 2 or 3 stars and everyone else is just along for the ride. It's like, yes, Cooper Flag is that, but even Khan is he's really a role guy. He's another shot creator. He stepped up big time with Flag out and showcased the potential to take over, which is great to see in case Cooper can't go or teams try to take him out of games or he has a bit off night. But yeah, I think this Duke team is super complete. They defend like hell. If Malik Brown is able to go again, I know that he's not. Offensively, he's not really a factor, but defensively, that kid is a stud. This Duke team is legit. So I'm gonna take them.
Gotcha. I agree. So now we have in the other game in the region, we have Alabama and BYU. Anyone think Alabama? Well, Drew, what are you thinking here?
I'm gonna go BYU. I was gonna take Wisconsin. I picked Wisconsin. I was gonna take Wisconsin here.
Okay.
Alabama, I think it seems like it's the same song and dance. I know they're super talented. I know they can put up points, but I don't know. Maybe it's just they've kind of burned me in recent years picking them. They have struggled a little bit down the stretch. They've picked up some losses now in the SEC. Those losses are coming to Florida twice, Tennessee and Missouri and Auburn. So it's not like they're losing to bad teams, but I don't know. I just think that if they run into a team, and I think BYU or Wisconsin kind of fits this bill that also likes to get that offense flowing. I just don't know if I trust Alabama. This is more of a gut feeling. If you guys take Bama here, I don't have a problem with that. I was going to take Wisconsin to advance here, but I'm going to stick with my guns. I'll take BYU.
What are you thinking, Josh?
I'm going with Bama here. I think it's just too much offensive power for BYU. I think even on a bad day, they're still getting 70, maybe close to 80 points a game. And just the issue is, the defensive liability of this team. They score almost 90 points a game, but at times they give up 100. So like I don't know if BYU is capable of doing something like that to this Alabama's defense. I think it's going to be hard for them to I guess play on defense with this Alabama offense, with Mark Sears, even Chris Youngblood, Aiden Holloway. It's going to be hard because all these great guards for BYU. But I think this would be a great matchup. But I'm going to go with Bama.
It's kind of funny. A lot of these Alabama players individually really have underperformed. Youngblood, Sears,
Yeah.
Nelson.
Yeah.
And we don't even know if Nelson's going to be available. The young kids really, Phylon is really good at attacking the basket and moving the ball down the court, but his outside shot still needs work. Stevenson is not really a reliable option. Reed's been out a good portion of the year, and he's not really proven anything yet. So basically, this team is really, in a sense, as good as they are and as highly ranked as they are, is really underperformed. Having said all that, and I do think that BYU is the better defensive team than Alabama. Alabama's been pretty dreadful defensively again. But remember last year, they came in the tournament and they couldn't play a lick of defense. And then they got into the NCAA tournament and then all of a sudden it was like they turned the switch on. Maybe they're planning on turning that switch on again. I don't know. That's not really a good strategy. And one of the reasons why I love BYU's defense over Alabama's is Keita. Keita has really come on in the second half of the season. Outstanding player. What a physical specimen. However, having said all that, for BYU to get here, they have a tough matchup with VCU. Then they'd have a tough matchup with Wisconsin. And Alabama just doesn't have the same type of path. So I think the smart money has to go on Alabama to advance. So I'll break the tie. I'd like to see BYU win that, but yeah. All right. So now to get in the Final Four, we have Duke versus Alabama. Who you got, Drew?
Taking Duke. Duke defends better. Duke is going to walk in with the best player. I think Alabama is going to get overmatched here. I think Duke is far and away better than Alabama. So give me the Blue Devils.
Any disagreement, Josh?
Yeah, no, I'm with Drew. I think this Duke team is just a better overall team. Defensively, it's just not even close. And yeah, you got, assumption of, Cooper Flag will be there. You got the best player on your team. So I'm going with Duke.
All right. So let's finish off with the Midwest region, and then we'll do our Final Four. All right. Anyone think Houston's going to lose in the first round to SIUE? No.
No shot.
All right. How about Gonzaga, Georgia? That's an interesting matchup. What do you think of Drew?
Give me the Zags. I think, take bias out of it, I think that they are a team that's playing their best basketball right now. I mentioned this earlier with Louisville. They're a team that on an 8 seed, in my opinion, as much as I love Houston, I think any 1 seed would not be very keen on facing. When you see the names Mark Few, Graham Ike, Ryan Nemhard, you expect that in Sweet 16, Elite 8, not just, first, second round. So I think the Zags are better coached. I think they're more experienced. They're playing their best ball. Asa Newell, funny enough, Gonzaga was his runner-up school. That was where he was either going to go there or Georgia, and I think his brother kind of swayed that. So their best player is a stud freshman who has really popped. I was a little bit more cautious of him early in the year. I thought he'd be good. I didn't think he'd be this good enough to basically carry Georgia to a tournament berth. But I think Gonzaga they're just playing better right now. They're more experienced. I think Gonzaga wins this one.
Right. The problem with Georgia is they're very young.
It's
the whole team is like sophomores, and I just don't see them beating Gonzaga here. And Houston's gotta hate the draw that they got. All right, how about Clemson and McNeese? McNeese was one of those teams that Jake and I liked preseason as a mid-major, but they haven't quite. I mean, they steamrolled through their conference, but they really haven't done a lot outside of conference. Anyone see Clemson going down here?
I don't think so.
All right. By the way, Dylan Hunter, Chase Hunter's brother. So Chase Hunter is the star guard for Clemson. Dylan Hunter is also a starter, and they really have played well together this year. Dylan Hunter broke his hand in the ACC tournament and is out. He's not a star player in any way, but it does mess with their starting lineup, and Clemson doesn't have a lot of depth. So just pointing it out. But we move Clemson on against McNeese. How about Purdue and High Point? Another respectable mid-major. Some talent there. High Point can score. Purdue can score. Could be a little bit of a shootout. Anybody like High Point?
I really want to take them here. To be honest, I really want to take High Point because I do think it's a shootout, and those games are the worst. That's actually, in my opinion, the worst type of matchup you can get into. I mean, Purdue's defense, particularly at the around like inside the arc, is not good. It's just straight up not good. And while I think Braden Smith, similar to Ryan Emhart, is a great player, I think physically there's you can attack him. It's the same issue that people have with guys like Ryan Emhart, is you can go at guys like that. So I'll play devil's advocate. I think High Point can get this one. I'm totally good if you guys want to move Purdue. I just think that this is one of those ones where personally I'm kind of leaning as they got a chance. I think if they can get this into a shootout, they can get scary.
Josh?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go High Point here.
You Purdue hater, you.
Yeah, I was never gonna take Purdue. I think I think they're gonna have a game plan to go after Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. Even though I think Braden has had a great year, first team All-American. I like this High Point team. I was watching them in their tournament. They can really shoot the ball really well. Got a Power 5, legend in Bobby Pettiford Jr. on this team. So I think they're a fun team to watch. And I honestly, I don't think they do have some depth. Yeah, they've got some great depth. And I would say Purdue's shooting ability it's definitely gone off less from the past years. I think it's a lot of it's dependability on these freshmen that Purdue have, and Miles Coven or CJ Cox, and it's going to be hard for those guys who haven't had the experience like Fletcher Lawyer or Braden Smith. So I'm pulling for High Point here. So we're going to go High Point.
I've been down on Purdue's defense all year. They really don't have a shot blocker. Their guards are small. We've also seen teams pressure them full court and this has been ever since Lawyer and Braden Smith have been there. Sometimes teams will throw the press on athletic teams and give them problems. Is that High Point? Yeah. Is High Point?
Lawyer can't really defend like that, but Fletcher's going to have trouble defending those guys, and even though Braden, defensively, he's gets a couple steals a game. I think they're going to attack those two for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. The next matchup is really interesting. We have Illinois against the winner of Texas Xavier tonight, which I think is a total toss-up. Everyone agree? Anyone like one particular team or the other tonight, Texas or Xavier?
I want Texas just because I want to see more
Trey Johnson.
Trey Johnson. That's more. It's more of a personal thing. I think it's complete toss up. I think this can go either way.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So do we have the winner of that game or Illinois advancing here, Drew?
I'm gonna go Illinois. This has been a team that's another one that's been really hard to put a pulse on. I feel like there's been times I'm like, could this team get to a Final Four? And then there's times I'm like, this team could lose in the first weekend. I'm still going to give them the edge here. I think that regardless of who they play, I think they're just better. But I think it'd be a good game, especially. I think getting that Texas Xavier draw is kind of a tough one because I think both those teams are dangerous. But I'll give Illinois the edge. But
yeah,
I don't know. I've been very touch and go with them. I thought early in the year we talked about them, Rich. I was like, this team could make a Final Four and we wouldn't be shocked. And I don't think that's changed. It's just can they put it together for more than a one game stretch?
if it's Trey Johnson moving on, just think of all the pro talents that's going to be on the court for that
Yeah,
Illinois
Yeah.
game.
that'll be fun.
Yeah. Josh, who you got here? The winner tonight or Illinois?
I'm still rolling with Illinois. I think it's they've definitely had their highs and lows throughout the season. I just think they have more depth than either of like Texas or Xavier. I think Will Riley has come on to being one of those guys over there. He's been tremendous over there. Very underrated freshman, in my opinion. I just think it's going to be a lot for either Texas or Xavier. Even Yakusonis is I think, going to have a good game, or Colin Boswell has been showing up pretty well. So I'm going to go with Illinois.
Yep. All right. Anyone see Kentucky losing to Troy?
Oh, I see it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can see it because it's bad.
Yeah.
I feel like it always happens, but no, I think Kentucky.
This is a different Kentucky team.
Yeah, I think Kentucky's good. All joking aside, this Troy team doesn't really. They don't generate enough turnover.
This is a very veteran Kentucky team,
yes.
not a Kentucky team stuffed with 5 stars.
It's more just injuries at this point that I think it's left. Right. It's more just they've just been so banged up. But like when this Kentucky team's firing, they're good. So
I agree. All right, UCLA versus Utah State. Who you got, Josh?
I haven't been the biggest UCLA fan all year round, but then again, they had a pretty solid year in the Big Ten, and Utah State's they've been losing their edge last couple of games and just how it's been. So I think just like depth wise and how defensively UCLA has played, I think I'm going to go with UCLA.
Yeah, I have a feeling UCLA is going to thump Utah State.
Yeah.
Yep.
I really do. All right, so we have UCLA moving on. Anyone see Tennessee losing to Wolford?
No.
All right. So now we move back up to top of the bracket. Drew, who you got between Houston and Gonzaga? Two of your
this
teams.
Is so sick. I'll never forgive the committee for this. Look, I'm going Houston. I love my Zags. I know that the Houston news has there been an update on Roberts? I'm pretty sure he's playing.
I heard he was should be okay. I mean, that guy's always hurt. I mean, seriously, because he plays so physically.
No, for sure.
He's always nursing something or another, and he rarely misses any time. Yeah. So
I think this is going to be a phenomenal game and has game of the tournament type potential just because of how early we're getting it and the narratives around both teams. But I love this Houston team because, as I've said, Rich, since you've known me, I've always loved them, but I've always been very cautious of the offense. Well, the offense is finally coming along for the ride. They've got 3 guys on the perimeter that can attack you, whether it's Uzon, whether it's LJ Cryer. They can just attack you in different ways. We know they're going to defend. We know they're going to rebound. They're a very complete team. They're just battle tested, and so I think this is an awesome matchup for college basketball as a whole. Sucks for my Zags, but I'll take the Cougars.
It might be Houston's toughest game in the region.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I'm going with Houston. You too, Josh?
Yeah, I'm going with Houston.
All right. So now we have Clemson versus High Point.
I think Clemson wins this. I think it's going to be too much for High Point. I believe. I think they've got a good forward and center going, Ian Shefflin and Victor Laughlin. I think it's going to be hard for High Point to kind of defend those two. And even they've got good shooters all around. Chase Hunter and even his brother as well. So I think. I do like High Point a lot, but I think it's going to be hard for them to beat Clemson.
Victor Laukkanen has really come on last month, really playing well. And he's got a nice stroke for a big guy.
He's got a good touch, too.
I, too, think Clemson would move on here. So now we have an interesting one. Should be a shootout. Illinois versus Kentucky. Who you got, Drew?
This is where I'm going to go Kentucky. I think the thing is with Illinois, and I think this kind of came to a head in that Duke game that they played the Gardens. I think they are just young. I think there's a level of inexperience.
One senior.
Yeah, I just think Kentucky's on the other end of that spectrum. Now, I know, again, Kentucky's been banged up, but this is a team that's full of guys that have, have had their feet in the March Madness cycle before. They've been good. They've been able to kind of survive the stretches of injuries. So I think Kentucky's just going to kind of outlast them in this one, just from a standpoint of the mental execution, the physicality, whatnot. I'm going to take Kentucky.
Right. I'm gonna go with Illinois here. I mean, as you said, Drew, and we've been saying for a while about Illinois, this is a team that could go to the Final Four, could also, lose to anybody on any given day. Just Kentucky's been dealing with so many injuries. I think that kind of evens the scales here. In terms of pure talent, Illinois has the edge. I mean, Kentucky has a bunch of good players, but Illinois has some players that ultimately will be spectacular. So I'm just thinking that maybe they keep it turned on for at least one more game, and I'm going to go with Illinois. So Josh, you have to break the tie.
I think I'm going to go Kentucky here. Again, I think it also winning in March, it comes down to a little bit of seniority and just experience. And Illinois kind of lacks that at times. They got a bunch of freshmen on the team, and I think the veteran leadership is lacking at times for Illinois. The high points and low, like you saw that Duke game, and that was an abysmal watch. Lost by 40, and I think just what Kentucky has done all year round is just I think they've just like veteran leadership and all that. I think it's going to be huge for them, and I'm a big fan of Ortega always. So look at that.
Drew is turning his camera to show that he's still a puppy. Is it a she or he?
He's still a puppy. He's only he's a little over a year old.
Okay, is at his window. Which was kind of funny because he turned the camera and I couldn't figure out what I was looking at. Then I see this brown face. All right, so now we move on to the next game, and that's UCLA and Tennessee. Anyone think UCLA has a chance here? Well, we know they have a chance, but
yeah, I think
anyone picking UCLA here?
Nah,
I don't think so. I think Tennessee wins that.
So now move up to the top again. We have Houston versus Clemson. I think Clemson's run ends here. Yes?
I agree. Yeah.
All right. And now we have an SEC matchup. And there's going to be at least one or two of these in this tournament. We have Kentucky versus Tennessee. Who you got, Josh?
I think I'm going to go with Tennessee here. I think just defensively, they're one of the best teams in the country. They have the experience, to go make a deep run in the tournament. I'm a big fan of Chaz Lanier. I think he's been one of the best players in the country, one of the best transfers in the country. And just, it's going to come down to shooting for this team. At times, I can see where they lack of it. And, Kentucky, I think at times also defensively lacks certain wing depth or even just like inside as well. So I'm going to go Tennessee.
Drew?
Yeah, this one's really hard. I want to go Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's beat them both times earlier this year, and both of them were, they weren't like dominating wins, but they won. They were in the game. With that being said, it's so hard to beat a team 3 times, and this Kentucky team, I think, it's just a bad draw getting Tennessee down there because it's an SEC team. They're familiar. So I'm gonna go Tennessee. I very, very, very easily could see Kentucky winning this game because they've proven that they can do it at Tennessee and at home. So a neutral court shouldn't scare them. But I just think that you're just playing with fire. It's the old adage: beating a team 3 times is tough, and I think there's no tougher time to do it than with a chance to go to the Elite Eight. So I think Tennessee gets their revenge, but Kentucky could totally win this game.
Yeah, I agree. It's not easy, given the Kentucky success, and Kentucky could score on anybody, even without Jackson Robinson. They're still able to put up 90 on people, but they also don't play very good defense, and so I'm going to go with Tennessee here, though. It should be entertaining. And now which might be the epic matchup or one of the epic matchups of this tournament. We have Tennessee versus Houston. Like, who wins this, Josh?
I think I'm gonna go Houston here. I think Kelvin Sampson has done a tremendous job this year. I really like just how they like it's what I like to see in defensive teams. Like they work on a string, kind of like they're all moving cohesively. They're all they pick up after another. On the switching and just like man to man defense. And they've got the question over the years with this Houston team is it was never the defense. It was always the offense and just the shooting ability. And I think this team this year has that. Manuel Sharp has been tremendous.
They're like fourth in the country in 3-point percentage.
Yeah. And Milos Uzan has been great too. He's been a tremendous transfer for them. And I think Juwan Roberts is healthy. He'll do what Juwan Roberts does. And I think it's just gonna be a lot for Tennessee to handle. I think this will be a low scoring game. I don't suspect there's going to be a lot of points. Houston likes to play that way too. And so does Tennessee, to be fair, as well.
Yeah,
but
they're both methodical.
But I think it's going to be a lot for Tennessee, so I'm going to go with Houston.
Drew, what are you thinking?
Give me the Cougars. Josh was nail on the head. I think it's a low-scoring game, but the problem is Houston can play that. Houston enjoys playing that way, but they can also crank the offense up now. So I don't think you can really throw anything at Houston that they can't. They can't handle. We know about the three-headed, like I said, the guards that they've got with Sharp, Uzan, and Cryer. Roberts does Roberts things. I love Joseph Tugler, just his energy and his activity.
Yeah, he wouldn't foul out all the time.
I didn't foul out, but hey, sometimes you need a little bit of, and then Terrence Arsenault, obviously off that Achilles injury, Rich, we've talked about.
He's still not 100%.
Still not 100%, but at 6'6", he can do some things. So I just think it's a very complete roster. And look, Rick Barnes at any point in this tournament can go Rick Barnes. And while this team's done a better job of not having those moments, like I said, a 5-minute stretch could end you, and then against a team like Houston, a 2-minute stretch can end you. So take the Cougars.
I lean toward Houston as well, mainly because, as an overall unit, they're a better 3-point shooting team. Yep. But I am going to bring up a couple points. The one thing I do like is that Chad Lanier seems to be growing more into the role of being a go-to scorer. He was kind of like a reluctant go-to scorer at certain times this year. The other thing I like is Ziegler. Ziegler is like, this year's Jamal Shed, and he is improving. He has improved offensively, and Houston doesn't really have that alpha leader. I mean, Uzan has played well, but I still don't see him being that alpha leader that Ziegler is. But I think it's going to be like a 1-point game, like 72-71 final score, something like that. But I'm going to give the edge to Houston. So we're down to our final four. And moving over to the left side of the bracket, in the South region, we have Michigan State. In the West region, we have Florida, a team we haven't even said a word about yet. Drew, who do you have in this matchup?
So we haven't talked about Florida, and I think that's because right now they've taken the mantle as the hottest team in the country. They are operating like an absolute wagon. They are playing basketball at such a high level right now. I mean, you look at the resume, there's not a single bad loss on. I mean, Georgia's their worst loss. That tells you a lot, coming out of the SEC. And I know we've talked about Auburn a lot this year, but I think this Florida team is right up there in terms of just how dominant that they've been. And then the run that they went on in the tournament was pretty impressive. I mean, they handled Missouri, they destroyed Alabama, and then in what was a close game, they completely just, and again, in the span of like 5 minutes, just completely neutered Tennessee and took them out of it. So they faced, what I love about this recent run is just in their tournament, you've literally watched them play like against a kind of solid, do everything okay, athletic team in Missouri, handle business. A really offensive, gunning team in Alabama, handle business. A team that is defensive, gritty, veteran head coach, handle business. They are playing basketball at a really high level. In my opinion, they are the best team in the country right now. There's just not a lot you can say about it. I mean, everyone that we talk about, they've been they've been awesome. I mean, Walter Clayton's a Player of the Year candidate. Elijah Martin has been a really big hit for them out of the FAU. A guy that I was really high on coming into this season, Rich, we talked about him way back when. Alex Condon has really emerged as a really solid, just kind of do everything big for them. And that's not to mention guys like, Will Richard, who are not even really is kind of lost in the fold because those three guys have taken a lot of the star power and shine. So I love Michigan State. I just don't think anyone's playing better than Florida right now. And so for that reason, I'm taking the Gators.
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm also with Drew. I'm very high on the Florida Gators. I think they've done a tremendous job under Todd Golden. I think they've got enough power, three-point shooting wise. Like, you got Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin's been phenomenal, Will Richard, and even like their bigs has been great too. Like I'm a big fan of Thomas Hall coming off the bench. He's been a great player for them.
I love Condon, man.
Alex Condon too. Yeah,
I think
should be a first round pick.
An NBA player, man.
Yeah, he should be a first round pick. And they've got depth too. Like they've got a bunch of guys on that bench. They come in, they produce really well. And I really like this team. So I think I have them moving on to the championship.
I have to agree with you guys. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. They've been a machine. They've kind of what Auburn did like early on in midseason. Florida's like picked up where they left off and run with it. So on the other side, we have Duke versus Houston. Josh, I'll start with you.
I think I'm going to go Houston here. I think the issue with Duke is I feel like they haven't played a team like this all year, and I think they're going to be shocked to see what this team has been capable of defensively and even offensively. I think it's going to be a very defensive-minded game on both ends of this team. I think they will have a plan for Cooper Flagg, and they will make other players around Cooper Flagg do the work for him instead of him. So I think I trust in Coach Sampson. I'm very high in him. I think he's a phenomenal coach. And again, also comes down to coaching too, the experience wise, Coach Shire, his second year as head coach at Duke. And it's going to be hard for this Duke team to beat Houston. So I'm going to go with Houston.
I like Duke. Now, of course, I'm assuming Cooper Flagg's healthy, but I think he's, you could game plan for him if you want, but Duke has other players like Knipple that can beat you. Also, Malawach brings a rim protecting option that Houston doesn't really have a 7-footer. They have a bunch of guys that are like 6'8" playing center. I also, I think this is where the absence of Jamal Shed finally shows itself. Houston plays a lot of ISO. They a lot of their offense doesn't really come from assisted plays. And I don't know. When I think about Cooper Flagg versus LJ Cryer, it's just like a no contest. And the thing about Duke is usually they're one or the other. They're either all offense but not great defense, or they're great defense. But this is probably the best defensive team that I can remember for a long time coming out of Duke. And I don't know. I think they can match Houston's defensively and have more guys that can actually get their own offense in a pinch. What do you think, Drew? You got to break the tie.
I'm going Houston. I think this is going to be a phenomenal game. I think it's going to be really fun to kind of see these two teams go at it, because it's almost kind of like you have the one team that is a little bit more heliocentric, has the rising star. Then you have the team that's been so close over the years, but injuries have just kind of gotten in the way, and they kind of it's more of death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, we had the Marcus Sasser injury that kind of limited them, and then obviously Shed goes down against Duke. So I think this team is finally, while I agree that they don't have that alpha, they've got a lot of guys that have at different times this year, I do feel have stepped into that role. I think a part of dealing with this Duke team has been an intimidation slash like fear factor is kind of extreme, but like that kind of factor, you can't do that to Houston. Houston is afraid of no one. Like Houston is the one team that draws Gonzaga at an 8, and I honestly think are completely unfazed. Like, okay, cool. Whereas I think any other team, I think it's in their head. I think there's a little bit of like, okay. So I think this Houston team is made of the right stuff. Duke, when you look at their losses, while they're all close, they've come against teams that have the physicality and the veteranship to match up with them. This was before Kansas kind of went off a cliff. Clemson's big, strong veteran, especially on the front court. Kentucky, we've talked about how they're super veteran heavy. That's what this Houston team is. And I think the one thing about Duke is, do they have a real closer? Like Cooper Flag's been awesome, but and this was earlier in the year, but he literally dribbled the ball off his foot and turned it over multiple times in those close games. Again, early in the season, players change, but they also haven't really, if we're being honest, been tested much since those earlier games, for the most part. I mean, outside of that Illinois game, the Clemson game, and the Louisville game, you could argue the last 2.5 months of the season, they played 3 teams. So I think that could rear its ugly head against a team that's going to be physical with him. They're not going to have any fear. Tugler might foul out, but he's going to make sure that they feel those fouls. Roberts is going to guard anyone and everyone, and he's going to do so with an intention and ferocity that even guys like Cooper Flagg are like, damn, this is a different type of, this guy's coming after me. And those 3 guards, any one of them can get hot, and if all 3 of them do, they can play with anybody. So really, really good game. This one was a hard one to pick. But I think Houston it just checks the boxes in the metrics on the resume. And then mentally, we know what this team's about. And at this point in March, it's not really about the talent. Everyone's talented. We have 3 1 seeds and a 2 seed in here. It's about who's willing to do literally anything to win. And I'm very confident that Houston is going to do whatever it takes to win a game like this.
All right. So now we have our final matchup. Drum roll, please. We have Florida versus Houston. Who you got, Josh?
I'm going to go with Florida. I think they have to win a national championship. I think it's been, I think, about 13 years since the last SEC team has won a national championship. I think the last team was 2012 with Kentucky.
Okay.
And, this has also been the year of the SEC, bringing 14 teams in, and I think this is a sign for this team to, not just them, but any SEC team, they've got chips on their shoulders to show that this is the best conference in college basketball. And I think the best team in that conference is Florida. And I believe that they have enough to beat a defensive-minded team like Houston, who I trust a lot defensively. The question that I do think is going to be the offensive ability of this team. If they do not shoot the ball well, I think they're going to have a hard time matching up with some of these guys. And
yeah, I guess that's what I was kind of thinking when we talked about the Duke Houston matchup. It was like, right, they really don't have like a go-to guy in the post,
right?
And they don't run a lot of pick and roll either,
No. And it's a lot of pick and pops as well. You come along with Condon and Clayton. You go around that screen. Either you've got Elijah Martin to the right of you, or you just pop it back to Condon for the 3. So that's going to give them some trouble for Houston, trying to make those adjustments. So, but I think Florida will win the national championship.
Drew?
I obviously have Florida. Houston's the matchup that I picked personally, as well as one we came with. I am going to take Houston here. I've waxed pretty poetically. I think Florida has all the pieces. Maybe this is me just saying, can Golden really do it? Can he go coach and win a national title? Maybe I'm calling that into question a little bit. Maybe that's some of it is. Again, I just think when you get to these games, the talent to me becomes a little less. It's always a factor, but I start looking at just those you've played these 6 brutal games. You have to be willing to, quote unquote, cross lines physically and mentally, like in terms of putting your body on the line. That is in the DNA of this Houston team through and through. Now these guys aren't all looking next to be NBA stars. Like this is it. This is their Super Bowl. This is going to be the crowning moment of their college basketball lives. I think they understand that. I think they're coached that way. They've been close, haven't gotten there. I think the stars align for them. I think Josh is right from a scheme standpoint. Florida's going to get looks that they like. They've got to hit them, obviously. But I just think this Houston team's made of the right stuff to just gut one out. And I think they hit enough big shots. I think enough guys contribute in timely manners to get where they need to go, and that is to win a national championship. Because again, I think they can play the game any tile away. If Florida wants to get out and starts banging shots, Houston has proven that they can do that. If this game is going to be a lower scoring, ugly affair, if the refs whistle gets involved, whatever it is, like this team has proven that they can get down in the mud with anybody. And I mean, look, this was a team that people questioned, oh, can they do it in a bigger conference? They have dominated the Big 12. Dominated. It has basically been their playground for the last 2 years. And we're talking about programs like Kansas State and Kansas and BYU being in there. And it's not even close. Like it's not even close. It's Houston and everybody else. So I think it's again an awesome game. I like this Florida team a lot, but gotta go with the Cougars, man. I think they're made of the right stuff, and sometimes that's what matters in March.
I have to break the tie, and I'm going to go with Florida. I just think that they have more offensive versatility. I'm just really impressed with the 3 guards and the 4 bigs. If you want to include Aberdeen in there, then you got 4 guards, 4 bigs. They even have the European guy, Euros Klapchar.
Yeah, the Serbian.
Yeah, who can like hit threes from the logo. So there's 9 guys. I just think they have a lot of different ways to beat you. Inside, outside, transition. And personally on my own card, I've already switched twice. I had Florida over Duke, and I had Duke over Florida. Now I just went back to Florida. I can't make up my mind but I really think the more and more I think about it, I like Florida to win it all, whether they're playing Houston or Duke. So yeah, that's it. All right, folks, we're gonna wrap up the show right here. Josh, Drew, make sure to get your brackets in before noon tomorrow. I know in the past, I know sometimes we run ours through CBS, and if you wait till the last minute, you might run into internet issues. It seems to happen every year. So try to get them in before 11. And yeah, I want to thank you guys for joining me. We didn't have any guests this week, no mailbag, but we'll be back next week to do a more normal show with a longer notebook, and we'll obviously be talking about the Sweet 16. I actually might be doing the show from the Eastern Regional. Who knows? I'm definitely going. I just don't know where I'll be when we do the show. But enjoy the tournament, gentlemen. Drew, I hope you get to DVR some games.
It is my personal hell. It is a sick cosmic joke that's been played upon me. Not only do I not work in college basketball, not only is the school that I work at cutting sports.
You mean college baseball, you mean?
No, but I'm saying I don't work in college basketball.
Oh.
I should be. I have to. The school I work at is shutting athletics down, and I'm going to miss the best day of basketball in the year, or best 2-3 day span of basketball in the year, to work a Division II college baseball team. Look, the guys are great. The coaches are awesome. They're also 1-10 in their last 11 games. So good chance we get our asses kicked too. So it's going to be my personal hell. So.
I feel bad for you. I really do.
Sorry.
That's a shame. And by the way, folks, we had an article that went up yesterday that basically put up it's kind of like an overview of the tournament, and we'll also post all the co-hosts' Final Four picks, champion picks, runner-up picks. Well, we didn't talk about them today. We've run long, but we'll post them on the website. So check out those articles before you finalize your bracket. All right, gentlemen, final thoughts?
It's here.
Let's go Johnnies.
All right.
Here. If the Zags pull it off, I'm going to be insufferable. I just want you to know that. You guys won't want me on the show. If somehow they get past Houston, I'm going to be insufferable. You're not going to want to deal with me for a week. I'm just putting that out there right now.
We could deal with it because we'll know it will also blow up your own card.